What is going on, everyone? How are you? I think, oh, yeah, turn that off. What is going on? Welcome to, get this right, Ranger-Bronco Base Camp Live. Why did we add the Ranger to it? Well, let me just say there's a lot of changes going on around here at Driven Wild Outdoors. One is our studio. We can actually sit in here a little more comfortably, I should say, rearranging things a little bit. But the other thing about adding Ranger to this is we're going to get into that tonight with our special guest. We have Tim with Overlanding for Fun. We have Jody with, and let me get the name right, Bird Dog Off-Road Adventures. Recently changed the name, so I gotta get that going there. Have. So, and Johnny with Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. It's going to be tuning in just a little bit. So, looking forward to that as well. And tonight it's all about Ranger and Bronco. Don't worry, we're not taking Ranger over Bronco. It's a mix, and we're going to talk about tonight how they're closely connected. Let's go ahead and bring in our guests one at a time.
I was ready for you this time, Dwayne. Last week you caught me off guard.
Yeah, last week you were. What were you doing last week? You were.
I don't know. I was probably bebopping to the music or something.
Tim, what is going on?
Not much. It is been a great week, and just having a good time. You know, obviously the news about the Ranger Raptor is hit the presses, and. Yep. All kinds of great videos are popping up on YouTube about that. So looking forward to talk about some of that tonight.
All right. And Jody, how are you? Name change. After you tell us how you are, what inspired that? I'm interested.
So I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. So I'm happy to be here with you guys. I know you guys outside of YouTube, so it's always a pleasure to hang out with you all and chit chat and, just talk about the stuff that we love. As far as the name change, it's one of those things I've been dwelling on for over a while, because I initially started out as Bird Dog Overland because I had a 4Runner, 5th-gen 4Runner. And when I got it, all my Toyota friends here in the Chicago area, they were all into the overland scene. So rooftop tents, all that stuff, and I did buy, like a ground tent, and I did go camping some, but over time it's kind of shifted. I've gone away more from just like camping and that sort of thing to more off-road centered. So I feel the name change was more reflective of what the content is, right? That I primarily produce. That doesn't mean I won't overland camp or whatever in the future. It just means I wanted to kind of have a more truer reflection of the content that I'm putting out there. So that way people know what they're getting.
Yeah, I tell you, you've got one of the most modded Broncos that someone I personally know. So it's like every time I see you on Instagram, it's like, where's he going to bolt that? I mean, like, it's just always accessories. So it's really good. I'm just poking fun at it. It's really good to see it get built like that. Now I'm kind of, not envious or jealous or anything, but it's kind of like you're all just putting the pressure on me to get mine dirty, put a dent in it, and start bolting something on it. So
hey, Bronco Super Celebration East, we achieved dirtiness on your Bronco, and that was great. And not only did it get a little bit dirty, but we did it. It was officially a water crossing. The water did come over the road, all 1/8 of an inch of it.
It was,
but it was a little splash, and it was a bona fide creek on the side of the mountain there. So you've been baptized, my friend.
You know what? Who cares if we can measure it in inches, like in less than 6 inches of water? But you're right. It was a water crossing, and we did it. So anyway, but it was fun. So we're starting to get. And Gavin and I are going to Firehouse Vintage this weekend in Statesville, North Carolina, as long as the rain holds out. Now, if it's going to be a washout, we'll cancel. But as of right now, it looks like it's going to be in. So this is Statesville, North Carolina. I'm going to be posting about it here on in the community section on YouTube, as well as Facebook and Instagram. So if you're in that area or want to come out and say hello to us and go check out an awesome shop with a lot of good stories there. I'm not going to tell the stories, but when you talk to the owner there, they're in the know. Let me tell you, they're connected to some really cool stuff. And so they do Broncos, rebuild Broncos, a lot of second gen stuff. They were the Tim and Jody, if you remember the company at Supercell this year that had the Coyote Swap 78 Broncos.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So it's going to be fun to see what they do. And, that's a lot of work doing that. It's not easy. And, hey, by the way, on another name change, who else changed their name there?
Correct.
Bronco 78 Adventures. Man, we're just getting I love it. I love seeing it evolve. We went from Bronco Wild Outdoors to Driven Wild Outdoors. So it makes sense. We can do other reviews, right?
So, yeah. So
what you got, Gavin?
We have Bronco 78 Adventures, Destination Bigfoot Bronco, Bird Dog Off-Road Adventures. See if we have any other ones.
You speak up, buddy. You're kind of far from the mic.
By the way, it for the name changes. But
by the way,
more to come.
Hello, Nick. How are you? Haven't seen the chats here in a while. It's pretty cool. So we're going to get right into this. I want to talk really quick, Tim, about you and I were originally going to do this on just the Bronco Trail app. So we're going to talk about the Bronco Trail app, Trail Map app. Say that 100 times.
Trail Map app.
Right. Yeah, but don't try it.
I'll do it later.
And we're going to talk about that. But right now, the Ranger. So the Ranger was revealed today to the public, at least the American version. We've seen this. If you've looked on anywhere online, you've seen this Ranger pretty much, with the exception of a few small things. You've seen it for over a year down in Australia, some other places. But what do you think? Tim, we'll start with you. What do you think about what you've seen today?
I like it. I do. I think it's gives a smaller, mid-size kind of variety. I think it answers some of the off-roading stuff with GM Chevy and also Jeep with the Gladiator.
Yep.
I think it creates more competition in the marketplace. So I think it's a good thing.
Jody, what do you think?
I totally agree. One of the first things I wanted to look at was to see how overland and off-road friendly it is. And I was watching some videos today where they pointed out, that this thing is already prepped. So if people want to put bed racks and put their RTTs on it, it's like the Bronco. It's very modification friendly or modular. If I was in the market for a mid-sized truck right now, I would definitely pick the Ranger. I don't know if I'd be able to afford the Raptor, but I definitely pick the Ranger, Raptor or not. I'd be curious to see what Toyota does with the Tacoma that's coming out here next week, to see how they've adjusted it, to see if it'll be competitive with this Raptor, because right now they're not. They're not nowhere near the horsepower, nowhere near the features. Of course, the Tacoma is a little low in the tooth, as well as the 4Runner is. So it'd be interesting to see if Toyota aggressively tries to compete in this market. Yeah, I believe Jeep will, like Tim said, as we've seen with the Bronco. The Bronco come on board, set the world on fire, so to speak, despite all the issues that it had. And next thing you know, Jeep's putting 35s on. Jeep's now got a special deal with 37s to try to, compete with the Raptor. So even if you're not a Ford person or a Bronco or a Ranger person, it does help whoever you are loyal to get the pressure on them to improve their offerings too. So if you're a Jeep guy, chances are next time you buy a Jeep, it's going to have stuff on it that you probably didn't have before, just because the competition's kind of mandated it.
Yeah. And that's a whether it be personal or business or whatever, a rising tide raises all ships, right? So, jealousy kind of just eats you away. And so companies can't be jealous of the fact. They're just going to say, hey, let's take whatever, let's do this, let's do that, let's go there. So Ford, and we'll talk about that later, there has to be some really good poker players there, based on the movement over the last few years. And I mean that as a compliment, like very skilled at, and this is just my opinion, of course, but very skilled at laying out a product line and sub-brands in a way that appeases the Model E side of the company, the EV stuff, and then the Ford Blue, which is the ICE side of the company. I was thinking today, I don't know why it hit me. I was like, look, Ford right now, forget all the little things. Sure, everybody's got a little stuff going on. I mean, look at what we're living through, right? But first it was people couldn't work, and then you had to stay home, and then whatever, and now it's inflation, right? So there's always that next thing. But when you look at Ford is appeasing right? Or satisfying the needs of the pony car lover, the hot rod, right? The 500 horsepower naturally aspirated Dark Horse, or the 486 horsepower naturally aspirated GT, or the hot rod EcoBoost, which is, I think the horsepower is now like what, 330, 350, something like that. They're taking care of that market. Now they have the Bronco, they have the off-road. Now you have the truck, you have the Maverick, and then you have this F-Series, of course, but then you have this truck. Now, I think this one, and we'll get into it in a little bit. I don't want to take all the airtime, but we'll get into a little bit how I think this truck is sort of the golden egg that goose that they've been working on has laid over the last few years. And I'll tell you, I really believe it. I don't mean that in hyperbole or whatever, but I believe that it's going to be that thing that connects all these dots together. Gavin, real quick, what do you think about the Ranger Raptor or the Ranger in general, 24?
I love the look of it, as you can see on a Ford Authority. As you can see on a Ford Authority.
Yep.
That looks like just a downsized Raptor. It looks awesome. Like,
you know what else it looks like in the front? An Everest.
Yeah, true.
Everest?
So
Everglades.
the Everest. We don't have that here. So it's another. I need to go to Australia. They have some cool vehicles there.
But
so go ahead.
Like the aluminum upper and lower control arms, Watts Link trailing arms, and a 2.5-inch Fox Live valve internal bypass shocks.
All right. So the suspension is your biggest thing on it. Now it's like a truck you can play with. So,
well, the looks are my biggest thing, first of all.
All right. Well, Tim and Jody, I want to throw something out there and see if I'm totally crazy or if I'm halfway right or whatever. Tim, you probably know I'm probably crazy anyway, but about this idea.
Yeah. Why limit ourselves to just the idea if you're crazy or not?
Yeah. I'll admit. I mean, you see this right here. Ford's living by this right now. Momentum. Yeah. So you have people that customers that want a Maverick, or they just bought one and they like it, but they want a little bit more. Maybe they've ordered one or they're waiting. They want just a little bit more, but the Maverick was going to satisfy them because basically it was the closest thing to what they wanted. Then you have other people that want an F-150. However, the price is creeping up to the point that it's becoming, for a lot of people, unaffordable or unattainable. And then you have people that love the Bronco. They love off-roading. However, they still need to carry stuff, right? They need cargo area. Do you think that a Ranger Raptor or say a Lariat or an XLT Ranger, we don't know exactly how you can build them, right? But totally built out for off-road, whatever options you can do. Do you think that the Ranger now is going to pull from all of those areas and bring in new buyers?
I absolutely think they will. Okay. I think it's going to address the Bronco owner. This thing's going to be, it's the same platform, same T6 platform.
Yep.
It's going to basically be the same suspension unless you go with the Raptor. And then it's going to have, is it the Haas 3 or it's the upper end suspension on it. So it's going to compete with the Bronco in off-road capability from that standpoint. And to your point, you get a 5-foot bed on the back, very similar to what the Gladiator has. I believe that has a 5-foot bed also. So it's going to lend itself to off-roading with an open bed, with the ability to put a rooftop tent on without actually having to put it on the roof of the vehicle. So I think that's gonna be there. It's gonna be that guy that wanted, small truck guy who was interested in the Maverick because there was no other option. That was, the option,
right?
But he wants more performance and more off-road capability, and that answers that too.
Jody, what do you think?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know if it's going to steal much from the Maverick, because I don't think the buyers of that vehicle, because I've considered getting a Maverick as a daily driver, just for the reasons you said. It can haul some stuff, But then again, I'm not hauling heavy stuff or big stuff. If I want to haul a new TV or a sheet of plywood or something. But I think the Ranger, as you all both probably know, if you watch a lot of the major overlanding channels on YouTube and so forth, or go to the overland events, there's been more of a shift from SUV-based overlanding, i.e. Wrangler, i.e. 4Runner, i.e. Bronco. Even though Bronco's not been around that long. But they've been shifting more towards Gladiators, Tacomas, Tundras, even TRXs, some of these full-size trucks as well. So I think this will cut more into that segment of the market than it will maybe the Bronco or the Wrangler or the 4Runner. I mean, it's going to have an effect all around anyway, but I think that you're going to see, like I said before, it depends on what the new Tacoma has to offer as well. But I think you're going to see it really take away more of those Gladiator people, more of those maybe people who've been using Tacoma, because Tacoma's been pretty much, until the Gladiator came, Tacoma was the only one-man show. Yeah, pretty much. I don't think the ZR2 from Chevy has really made a dent anywhere. I mean, it's there, and on paper it looks like a really good truck, but I don't think there's a lot of people that's kind of jumped on board that just yet. So I think it's going to probably take more away from competitors. But I mean, yes, if somebody's on the fence, depending on what their needs are, if it's somebody like us three who's more geared towards off-roading and ventures, then they'd probably prefer a Bronco. But if they're somebody like me who lives in a less than rural area that doesn't want the inconvenience of having a full-size truck, definitely, that mid-sized market's a prime for that. When I first moved here to Chicago, I had an F-150 crew cab, and I love that vehicle, but it was such a pain in the rear end to park and get around the city, so I got rid of it. Other than that, I would have kept it. But I think you're going to have people that fits their needs. But I think most of those people had the Ranger not been introduced, instead of looking towards a Bronco, unless they're just really diehard Ford people, they'd probably been looking more towards a Gladiator, or Tacoma, or maybe even a ZR2 or a Colorado. So I think that you're going to see probably more pull from that area. And, this thing is modular. The fact that it does share the platform with the Bronco, like you all said, I think that's really going to help the aftermarket as well, with parts available. With the Bronco, as you all know, everybody was trying to rush to market because it's a brand new platform.
Right.
But sharing that platform with a semi-established Bronco market now, I think you're going to see parts come in quicker, kind of like when the FJ and the 4Runner. A lot of the parts on those were interchangeable with some exceptions. And so I think you're going to see that kind of effect as well. You're going to see aftermarket being able to adapt more readily to it. So that's probably going to fuel a lot of the adventure buyers.
Well, also, I think some people were disappointed that he get 35s on the Ranger Raptor, so it's 33s, but it's B-Lot capable wheels, just like down in Australia last year, were an option.
Yeah.
Also it's a smaller truck.
Absolutely. So it's just, you don't think they could stick a 3500, or you think it would?
It would jack up the amount of clearance you have, because it'd be taking up more fender space, and
very good point.
And it'd be wider.
So you're saying they'd have to
hit closer, so they would have to lift it, and it would look weird.
So that is Gavin brings up a good point. I mean, do we have the wheel well capacity?
No.
Wheel well capacity that we have with like the Bronco, and being able to support them, because and you can ask Jody. I mean, you went to 37s and you had to lift the body up, and did you also have to take off the crash bars?
So it being a Sasquatch, it didn't have the extension. So when I had the zone 3-inch lift prior to the body lift, it would work. Only time I had rubbing was like an extreme articulation off-road settings with the sway bar disconnected, and it would rub the front part. So as a precaution, I did put the body lift, but it was only like 1/2 inch. So we're not talking about a lot of difference. But I ended up going with the JKS kit just to make sure that there was no chance of any rubbing in the future. But to be honest with you, some of that was probably my own fault for getting a -12 offset wheel too. If I'd have got a less offset, it would have probably not been an issue, because I know some others. But I think that you do have to have a lift. But to be fair, guys, Tacoma, Gladiator, Colorado, none of those come with 35s either. So It's not like it's not meeting a standard for that segment, I guess you could say. But I'm sure, how people are. I'm sure it won't take long. You'll see people throwing lifts on them. You'll see people cutting here, cutting there, and making accommodations. I mean, because people are putting 35s on Tacomas and Gladiators, and in some instances, even larger tires. So there'll be a market for it. And I think that's one good thing about the Bronco being a little bit more established before this came out, is that those suspension lifts, you know, with the exception of the Raptor, like Tim said, you know, they'll probably be more readily able to produce those kits to allow that. So I think we'll have to kind of wait and see. I mean, we right now we won't know until it gets here and people start buying them and playing around with them. But yeah, I think that's definitely something that could possibly happen.
Hey, I'm going to go through a couple of the comments here so we can answer some of it. Bronco 78 Adventure said the Ranger Raptor is supposed to start at 56,680. Now, I don't know if I haven't seen where they can officially announce it, but you know, leaks happen. So, what do you think about 56,680 if that's an accurate number for the Ranger Raptor?
So,
what do you think, Gavin? Sorry. Would you pay that?
So I was looking. Someone had asked, do we know how many they were? If there's going to be a limited amount made, like the Raptor. So and the Heritage Limited. So I was looking that up, and I saw on one article that the starting price was $32,000, but
I think that was for the entry level Ranger.
I think it said Ranger Raptor, but that was probably
right. I heard 56-ish, and I think it might have been Mitchell Watts on his video, and he's got the inside Iggy on most of this stuff.
Yeah, he does.
That was misinformation.
So,
Gavin goes, he's full of misinformation.
No, who said it? No,
not Mitchell.
No.
The article.
Okay.
Yeah, he's talking about the article. No. He's a big Mitchell fan. He likes Mitchell a lot. Watches all of his videos. I did see his video today on the Ranger. I'll tell you someone that had two people that had really good content that weren't there. Was Tim Bartz. He had a great video this morning. I watched it early, full of details, information. Also, there was Mitchell's video. I saw that one. Very good information. There again, some of the stuff overlap, but there again, in each video, you learn something new. And we've got a guest that I'm getting ready to add to the screen here in just a couple of seconds. I see him smiling in the back, so get ready, my man. Get ready. We're bringing on Mr. Big Time himself. But real quick before we do that, the other thing was for Joe Rady. I'm a big Rady's Rides fan, right? I like his reviews. He's funny. You know, he's always talking about the Twinkies and M&Ms and whatever else is going on. He did a really good review of I think it was a Lariat today. Then he turned around. He posted a couple today, and then one of the Ranger Raptor. And he really went into some detail. And one of the things that I thought was missing in a lot of the reviews I watched was approach and, the wheelbase lengthened. So the wheels are closer to the front of the vehicle and closer to the rear to help with approach and departure. So let's bring on our next guest and let's talk about the details on that Ranger and how it works with the Bronco and how does it compare there. So let's go ahead and add Mr. Johnny with Johnny's Car Care and Review. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to have been invited to the talk tonight. Thank you very much. And over here, we've got this debate going on, probably going on in a lot of families. Are we going to go through with our Bronco order, or will we switch that to a Ranger, or really actually with the Maverick resale value? It's more like, will we sell Mary's Maverick for a Ford Ranger, because we're both digging that vehicle quite a bit.
Yeah.
I actually really like the new Tacoma. I did a video on it recently, but for her, that's non-negotiable. She won't even talk about it. She doesn't like the look of the Tacoma. Plus, in French, when you say something's a taco or taco, it's apart from the automobile industry. It's a way to say that something is crap, poorly put together. So she's just allergic. Even though she worked at Toyota, she's allergic to the Tacoma. And for whatever reason, I know local Toyota dealerships actually have trouble selling Tacoma. So maybe this is a good omen. Maybe I'm bringing a good omen for the new Ranger, because clearly Ford is trying to, bring in extra sales with this new Ranger. They went over the top with the Ranger Raptor, as you guys mentioned, and I love how Jody mentioned the fact that they're using exactly the same frame as the Bronco. Previously, it was a misconception that the Bronco had the same frame. It was based off the same frame, but it was modified, essentially making a new frame. So Jody brought up a great point saying that, there's going to be more aftermarket. You will be able to just have more and sooner for the aftermarket. And that's pretty important to a lot of consumers. But you really see that Ford is headhunting the Tacoma in two major ways, and that's the 6-cylinder, the 2.7 liter V6 twin turbo is an incredible engine. 315 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque is nothing to cough at. And then when you consider that we've got the Raptor engine, and as you guys, Gavin, Dwayne, you're all talking about pricing on the Raptor, and yes, $56,660 definitely looks like it's, let's say it's 99% official. And in Canada, it's also pretty official, we'll say. It's 99% official as well, that we're going to be looking at a price tag right under $80,000. Now, just today I had someone saying like, hey, they're like, oh, forget me they currently have an F-150, and they're like, forget the idea of switching my F-150 for another F-150. I want a Ranger Raptor. And I said, well, no problem. We can order it May 26th. And I said, hopefully I'll have my order guide by then, or maybe if we're really lucky, we'll have the website for the build and price. But the reality is that they found that to be expensive. So we'll see how the market takes to this. But we do have to recall that, $56,660, or in Canada, basically $80,000 is $30,000 less than a fully equipped Raptor. So the F-150 Raptor is running $110,000 Canadian, and the Bronco Raptor, which cannot be found in Canada, is also running about $110,000. So I actually find, people are going to call me crazy, but I find the Ranger Raptor at $56,600 or 80 Canadian is actually a solid, good deal when you're comparing it to other Raptor products at Ford.
Yeah, well, Johnny, you covered a lot of the stuff there. Try to pull that apart. We were talking about the technical side. I'm glad you said that. Some people, that's why I'll sometimes say a platform or a frame. You can have a platform with two different frames.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to get hit on that one, but I can trust me on the technical side of things. I do study. The Ranger is the Ranger Raptor is the box frame. I know you mentioned it in your video earlier today where they've mounted the shocks on the outboard of the frame to give it more stability, a little smoother ride. Absolutely. Also, the rear differential is hinged with it's the Watts brackets, the Watts system. So as it rotates, as you compress, right, as you have travel in the suspension, it's not moving the diff front or back. It's going straight up and down. So it adds for a better off-road. But what do you think about the 3.0? It's 405 horsepower down from the 418 that's in the Raptor. The only thing I can tell you is that's tuning. I don't think they would change any hardware.
I saw that, Dwayne. They were talking about that, and yes, they have tuned it down, and it had something to do with plumbing, I think.
Was it air
plumbing? Yeah.
Okay.
Is
so
what I read, and then that could be speculation.
Right.
But the flip side of that is it weighs a lot less too. So long run, are you going to see a difference? It's going to run like a scalded dog. I'll tell you that.
Right. It's bragging rights at Cars and Coffee. It's not, Here's the other thing. So the biggest thing about the Bronco Raptor 3.0 version is they were able to reduce the induction losses by 50%. And that's a combination of different turbos, different compressors in the turbos, different charge pipes, a dual inlet intercooler and all that. And also 34% exhaust loss reduction. So you wonder, okay, was there something different, like you said, the plumbing with the induction air? I mean, it has that big grill, and that grill is on there for a reason. It says Ford on the front. It doesn't say Raptor. But it's on there because those big spaces, that big block area, is to allow more air into the it's called a snorkel, but most people call it an air box, and then it goes through the system. So it's interesting. That's a good point. I can't wait to see one, because if I could get my hand, my invitation to review the Raptor was lost in the internet world.
You're not.
So
mine was too.
You're not an auto journalist.
Yeah, Johnny, I'm not an auto journalist, but I am. I'm having fun. But what's happening is, if I could see it, then I can make a comparison between the Bronco Raptor and on the visual side of things. But I was just thinking today they tuned it down, and the point of saying that was, it looks like if they didn't lock it down, that you could tune it back into it, and maybe they'll come out with a tuning in the future. So, a couple things here, and Johnny, thanks for all that info, by the way. I like knowing how we compare prices between American and Canadian. That's always interesting to me. We have the Ranger has and we're going to get Gavin in here on this one. I'll just let him share the notes. An XL, XLT, Lariat, and then the Ranger Raptor, of course. Now, what I don't know, and Johnny, maybe you know this answer, the 360 cameras, is that going to come on all of the trims, or an option in XL, XLT? And what about the 400 watts of power in the bed, in the cargo bed? Is that something that's standard?
Solid questions. And, the nail in the coffin is going to come out officially when we actually have an order guide. So we don't have an order guide. Ford needs to have that open for ordering day, May 26th. And ideally, they'd have it actually available a week early, and, even the build and price on the internet, so that people can work on these and know what price it should be before going kind of blind into the dealerships, because some dealerships are dealerships, and some dealerships are just fantastic places to get information and help and assistance, but they need that build and price on. But so far, 360 camera on an XL, I can just tell you from, just knowing the product, the Ford line across all the models, it's highly doubtful. Now, the 400 watt, it could be present on the XL, but as all manufacturers do like doing, they do love getting you to up a model or even two. Now, Ford isn't so nasty that you have to go up to a Lariat just to get, the things you actually want. But, earlier in my video today, I was talking about Gladiator prices, and you go on the Jeep Gladiator website, and you recall, it's at $38,700, and that's before transport and destination. So, that's one thing we always need to keep in mind. But when you go over to GM, if you get Colorado, whether it's a GM Canyon or a Colorado, the base model Colorado comes without cruise control on the base model, just like the Ford Maverick XL originally did. And then Ford, through hearing and listening to their clientele, decided to make cruise control standard on the Maverick XL. So I'd be very surprised. Sorry, I'm long-winded as always, but I love details. I'd be very, very surprised if we can actually get certain things that we will want on the XL. So I'd be surprised. I'd say it's about a 50-50 chance on the 400 watt being available on the XL, because it is generally, even the onboard generators that, they're not really generators, but they act as generators on that 150. You can get them on lower trims, but they're definitely going to hold out some things on the XL. So I would say I'm 100% confident the 360 camera will not be on the XL.
The kind of lower trim. So Jody,
what about the tow package? That is the most important.
Yeah.
Oh, the tow
package. Got to have the tow package.
Yeah. Jody, question for you. When you're out wheeling, right? Now, not so much camping anymore, but wheeling. But how would the ability to have, 400 watts of AC power off in the middle of the trails, I think, what would that do for you as far as, and what if you were camping? Think about how nice that is.
Well, if of course, I'm not sure how fast that would drain the battery, because I've never had that on a vehicle. But as far as like out and camping and stuff, you could power everything from CPAPs to cooler refrigerators, lighting. If you're at a campsite and you need extra lighting, right now I rely on those power box things you buy that you charge up and plug in, and they last for over a day. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because I know, like, when they had those ice storms in Texas, the F-150s they were powering their house.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, big word, assuming that would be a pretty decent power source and with some longevity. So it'd be interesting to see how long it lasts, because if it lasts long enough, people like me who use a CPAP, we could use that, possibly electric blankets or, other stuff, freezer, fridge combos, stuff like that. Because what I do is I use my power box. I plug it into the cigarette lighter in the back of the Bronco, and it runs a cycle through the fridge to the Bronco. So when the Bronco's running, it recharges. But when the Bronco's not running, like if I'm at night when I'm sleeping, the power box powers it. So I'd be curious if that's kind of a similar feature to where it cycles.
So
that way you never run out of juice.
Did you say 400 watt?
Yeah. Well, the in the truck, in the Ranger, it is 400 watts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and that's pretty incredible. And now they're throwing these things out, but we always go back to XLT Lariat or Raptor. Certainly it's on the Raptor. You would think it's on the Lariat. Does it become an option that you can add to an XLT? And probably not on the XL. I mean, think about the XL. The XL is your base. It's typically your work trim. It's the delivery truck. It's, that type of stuff. It could also be an XL, could be a starting point like a base Bronco is for someone that just wants to build the heck out of it their way.
So one of the things, Dwayne, if you don't mind, one of the things that kind of struck me is that the lack of trims. The Bronco, we could probably all argue maybe has way too many variants.
Yeah.
Trims. But the Ranger, you have just 4. So, and assuming the Raptor of the Ranger is a limited run like it is in the F-150 and the Bronco, you're talking about a lot of people that may be like more towards the overland off-roading scene may be left out and have to go for a base model. I'm surprised Ford didn't come out with like a quote Badlands or Black Diamond type model to where, like you have the lockers, you have some of the other features that maybe aren't necessarily exclusive to the Raptor. That's kind of surprised me as well. So, because we talk about the price of the Raptor, even if it is 56, that thing I sent you earlier today, Dwayne, that had the horsepower ratings and the suspension comparisons versus the TRD Pro, the Gladiator, Rubicon, and the ZR2. Be mindful, the Raptor is way more powerful than any of those option wise. So I don't necessarily put it in the same class as, say, a Gladiator, Rubicon. To me, that would be like comparing a Raptor to a Rubicon, a regular Rubicon Wrangler.
Well, at the beginning of the show, I don't know if I said it on the air or before when we were talking, but some of the executives at Ford, you wouldn't want to play poker with them, right? And I mean that as a compliment, in case somewhere in the world it's not. But what I mean by that is, look at the executive that was just speaking at an event somewhere recently when they said there's going to be a lot more Bronco trims coming. I think that you don't want to spend all of your attention, right? Your momentum right here on my shirt. You don't want to in the very beginning, right? So momentum is doing something well and doing it over and over and over and adding value. So if Ford continues to add value, that says to me they're thinking, okay, there's a wild track coming. It's going to be in a year. There's going to be, and I think the Ranger Raptor, personally, I think will be every year. It'll just be limited in numbers that year. Mm-hmm. Is there a Badlands? Good point. I didn't think about a Badlands. I don't know why. That's a good point. So is there a Badlands coming? What do you think about that evolution as this thing goes years down the road?
I mean, I think, it depends on who they're targeting. If they're targeting like off-road enthusiasts, whether it be overlanding or off-roading in general, I think that you want to have a more available trim that has some of those capabilities, i.e. rear locker, front locker. I mean, I don't think a sway bar disconnect would probably be something that a lot of people would care about in these. But
because it's not a rock crawler.
Yeah, it's not a rock crawler, but you still want to have something that's capable off-road. The Tacoma TRD Pro has rear lockers. It has A-Track. The Gladiator has front and rear lockers. The Rubicon does. The Colorado has lockers.
Hey, Tim,
yeah.
I'm sorry, we'll get you in here in a second. Gavin, what would you want to see on the Ranger, whatever trim, the Ranger that you see, say, on our Badlands Bronco? if we were getting a truck, what's the one thing, whether it be infotainment, hardware like suspension? What do you think trail turn assist in one? I mean, does it even have it, Johnny? Do you know?
Well, I'm going to answer that in just a sec. Just to mention about your 400 watts, because for people like Jody, it is pretty important. It's going to be standard on the XLT, Lariat, and Raptor, but doesn't say anything about the XL. So I do suspect it won't be available on the XL. If it is, it'll definitely be at a charge, but it's pretty nice that it's standard. And the 360 camera was also a standard on the Lariat, and I believe said available on the XLT. But in regards to the Raptor, well, the Raptor does have the locking front diff for off-roading, correct?
Yep. Yes, front and rear.
Okay.
Yeah. So real quick, Gavin, what would you want to see in that Ranger? What are you thinking about? Like, what would just do it for you?
A hot spot, but you don't have to pay for it.
Okay. Let me guess, so we can play video games. Come on, man.
So
yeah, come on board. Yeah, go. They're like, what? The meme with the guy standing across the room with the cigar and the drink, and he's like, what? That's what they're doing. Like, what now? I just gave you the Ranger Raptor. No, but seriously, is it something that? All right, bottle opener. You had fun with the bottle opener in the back.
Yeah, we have to redo that video.
Yeah. So yeah, he spilt some of the drink in the back, but little things, right? How many Easter eggs? Those are the things that are going to come out. That's not really like big tangible things. It's just kind of the cool factor. But bottle openers is not something that you have to have, but it's kind of cool. But when I think about it as trail turn assist, stay bar disconnect, I don't really see that because of the rock. It's not a rock crawler.
Not yet.
Not yet, but
Not
there
yet.
again, right? What does it evolve into, right?
Bronco 78 Adventures.
Yeah.
Said bottle opener is on the tailgate.
But well, there you go. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, there you go. That's a good idea. There's a comment here. Go big or go home, Vegas. I hear you. Why don't these vehicles come with onboard air compressors?
Yes.
Even better. What about, does Ford sell that on their website? An aftermarket like an ARV? Do they sell that at all?
I don't recall seeing one, but they may.
I don't see it at all. So would it be that there's a place for it or it's wired for it, right? And all you have to do is then buy it, like we do some of the other accessories, like a winch.
Yeah.
But
I do like the accessory switches in the at least the Raptor, Ranger Raptor.
Yeah, but to be fair, the only Jeep that has it's that AEV model that's like well over $100,000.
Yeah,
I don't think any of the regular Jeeps have it either.
Gotcha.
So.
What were you saying?
So about the onboard air compressors, they're like on the McLaren racing team. There's a little nozzle for a air compressor hose. Then when you put it on, these little like piston things come out the bottom.
Oh, the jacks, yeah.
So you put it on, it goes.
Oh, there you go. So there's an aftermarket idea.
Yeah.
The wheels and then you push a valve and then it really slows the air real fast, drops, and then you drive off.
Gavin just came up with an idea there. Why not an air jack?
I didn't come up with it.
Well, for the Ranger Raptor or the Bronco for that. So,
yeah.
Tim, would you ever consider selling your Bronco for a Ranger Raptor?
That'd be a tough one. That'd be like getting rid of a kid, I think. But I definitely, I guess I'm going to have to see what the inside looks like. And in full transparency, it's been a long time since I tried sitting in a Ranger. So being, as tall as I am, I had my head scrunched over and everything. But I'm guessing with this latest generation, there's going to be quite a bit of room. Plenty of room in the Bronco. But Dwayne, I did want to go back to something you were talking about with just the 4 models. I honestly think a couple things. I think Ford kind of maybe learned some lessons about trying to, come right out of the gate with 9 different or 8 different trim levels. And I think they've pared that down to probably some things that are more, this is what people, we think are looking for, and doing that, but also, they created a lot of, constraints, commodity constraints. And I think gearing these things a little bit better could help them,
I agree,
kind of go through that as things tend to come back. But also, longevity. I mean, if they've got some stuff to add every year and to do a little bit more, you extend that out. So I think they're learning from the lessons of the rollout of the Bronco, and because I think this is going to be a hot vehicle. I really do, and I think the executives there understand that, and are taking a little bit different approach in rolling this out.
Gavin's getting ready to split for a night. You'll say goodbye to everyone?
Goodbye, everyone in the chat. Goodbye, everyone on the stream. Thanks, Tim, Johnny, and Bird Dog for joining in tonight. So,
all right, man. Go get some rest. You're tired. I can tell. He's slowing down quick. All right. See you, buddy.
See you, Gavinator.
Yeah.
See you. Gavinator, you're out. All right. So.
Before I go, just saw Trail Cartel commented. Still have your sticker.
Oh, yeah. Gavin still has your sticker.
That's been on the desk for so long.
Gavin met Tony there at Supercell our first year, and his impression, he always talks about it. He's like, we need to see Tony again. He's such a nice guy, because Gavin had one experience that was just, ugh. And then the next person he met was Tony, and he was like, okay, he's cool. I like him. So let's hang out with him. So anyway, Trail Cartel has great, by the way, has a Bronco Raptor. Hey,
we don't talk about that guy.
Okay. So 12-inch center screen. Now, and Tim, we can bounce around and get your opinion on this with Jody, but I want to go to Johnny real quick. First of all, before we get into sort of the interior features, let's just stick with the Raptor right now. Right, you have the code orange, you have this, you have the 12-inch screen, you have the zone lighting, the cargo box side step, which is pretty wide. Have you had, with all of these videos and press release, have you had a lot of attention today, or a lot of questions, people asking you about could they order one or when?
Yeah, not that much. Surprisingly, at least, you can say on the field, I had one inquiry today about the Ranger, and I was kind of the guy going around being like, hey, this is huge. We have a 6-cylinder. And then when I mentioned, to the team around me, the Bronco's going to have a 6-cylinder outside of the Raptor, then people got excited, because I can tell you there was a ton of excitement when the Ranger came back to the North American market. In Canada, the excitement was pretty high. But I lived, I'd say a year before it came out, constantly people coming in and inquiring. Then when it did come out, people coming in for about 6 months. And I hundreds of times I heard, oh, well, it doesn't have a 6-cylinder. Forget about it. So we're going to find out. Are people going to put their money where their mouth is? So I'm waiting for hundreds of people to come back and say, you know what, now that the Ranger has a 6-cylinder, I'm buying one. And I always found that to be kind of a bit of a sad attitude, because if you look at the Tacoma, first of all, their 6-cylinder with no turbos when it first came out in 2016 had some reliability issues, had some problems. It's a pig. It eats like it's a pig on gas, and it's a lot like the Jeep 6-cylinder. You have this big 6-cylinder and you think you're going to get some impressive stuff out of it, and you only do if you're at 5,000 RPM and above. So you have to beat it just to get a bit of acceleration. And it's not that the acceleration is horrible. It's just you don't feel the acceleration because you're only getting it when you're at the 5,000 RPM range. So I always found the 2.3 liter to actually be a lot better than the Tacoma 6, as well as really any of the non-turbo 6 in the midsize truck market. because at least the 2.3 liter, you pressed on the pedal and it gave you instant torque. And that's just not the case for the 6 cylinders. So the Ranger coming out with the twin turbo 2.7 liter, I think a lot of people are putting a lot of attention on the Raptor, which is fine. It's gorgeous.
Right.
But I'd say really the sweet spot, what people should really be thinking about if they're thinking about their wallet and not resale, obviously get your hands on a Raptor. Resale should be great. But I'd say the sweet spot is the 2.7 liter XLT.
There you go. Jody, what do you and we're going to come back to that in a second. I want to ask Jody this. Trail Cartel asked, have you talked about, and no, we haven't talked about the suspension travel on the Raptor Ranger yet. So I do know with the Fox suspension, it's external bypass in the rear and internal in the front. So it sounds sort of like the Ranger Raptor. Is the travel, do you know, the same as the Ranger Raptor? Does anyone know?
I would think probably the Ranger Raptor, I would put it probably, well, I mean, it's wider. So that's going to allow for more articulation in the front at least. I'm not sure. I'd assume, since they haven't released anything that I know of, I would assume it probably won't be,
on that.
Yeah, I don't think it'll probably be as because it's not as wide as the Bronco Raptor or the F-150 Raptors. I don't know if it'll have probably similar travel to them, but I'm sure it would definitely have more than a standard Ranger. I don't know compared to say like a normal Bronco though. I don't. It's kind of hard to say until they release more information. But you know, being Fox, I would assume that it's going to be a good high quality. We just don't know the specifics about that yet.
Well, and also, you know, the frame is going to be reinforced. It sounds like it's reinforced in the areas sort of like the Bronco Raptor. So you have the joust bumpers in the Raptor, the Bronco. Now you got to say, you know, which one. But in the Ranger Raptor, you have, I know, a reinforced frame. So it sounds like they're building this to take a beating, sort of like the Bronco Raptor. Now, of course, until we see the drive videos on that, which Ford, maybe this invite won't get lost in the, you know, in the interweb somewhere. But because if you want somebody to do a technical review of this thing, right here, ask me.
You gotta make sure you check Auto Journalist on the.
I will start. I will put that on all my information now. I am that, yeah. But no, seriously, if you look at all of, there's a lot of the carryover technology. So Trail Cartel, to answer your question, I don't know. I think at this point it might be a lot of speculation. I don't really know. But when you get into the interior, we started to talk about this, Tim. I don't know if you want to take this. The 12-inch center screen or center stack. It's the screen in the front. One of the things that I think was hit on today, someone was talking about these, you know, like a shifter in a big shifter, right? Well, you have the Palm E-shifter. And so the Palm feeling is so that you can go through that 10-speed sort of in some manual mode and get a feel that you're driving, sort of like a manual. But also it keeps it so everything in that screen is visible, like the HVAC now. What do you think about what you've seen on the inside?
I haven't seen a lot of the photos on the inside. I'm actually seeing what Johnny's putting up there. I'm not sure I'm a fan of the 12-inch screen in landscape mode as opposed to portrait.
Right.
I think it does help out. Are they doing away with all the mechanical? Well, it looks like they've still got some of the mechanical stuff there.
The climate will still be. Thankfully, the climate is still on buttons, because the real problem is if ever these screens freeze because of extreme heat or extreme temperature or don't light up. Who is it? Is it Toyota right now that has a huge recall for? Yeah, I think it's Toyota has a huge recall for screens that would just stay black, they'd be blacked out. So then imagine if you're in a Canadian winter or a northern United States, and you know you can't even go to work. Your vehicle is completely crippled because you can't defrost or heat your cabin. So yes, thankfully those climate buttons are down there, but then the rest is like lightning. So you gotta hope that screen works.
Yeah.
So yeah, Johnny, and thanks for rolling the pictures there. I could share it here on the screen. Honestly, I didn't set that up. I had I don't get to play on YouTube all day. I do have a company to run. So I didn't have a chance to do that, but I wanted to. But so thank you for that. So look, let's run through this real quick. XLT, Lariat, Ranger. We've talked about that. 360 cameras. Now, which trim is this on? Which one's an option? For all of this stuff, this is yet to be seen. The 400 watts of power in the bed, the rear seats, under seat storage. Also, the rear seats lay flat. So if two people are going overlanding and you have a rear cargo area and the tent on the back, say you're going to, Primo Works is they're a friend of ours, and they have a company that they build a lot of overlanding stuff for trucks. I can't wait to talk to them about this. But imagine you're going overlanding. You've got the gear in the back. Now you have extra storage where that seat lays down completely back. It's pretty cool. Let's see. The 12-inch screen, we talked about that. It's actually like 12 point something, but I mean 12-inch. Yeah. The Sync 4A with over-the-air updates. I love that. Zone lighting, that brings in sort of, similar to my F-250, even though it's not zone lighting. I have all the lights outside. But then the Bronco has the zone lighting. The cargo box side step, which is great, especially on a Ranger Raptor with being taller. Trailer backup assist. Now, that's going to be cool. I'd love to know on new vehicles, Johnny, how many is really interest on that. You have 3 drive modes, and you have the Fox Live valve. In the Raptor, you have the 3.0. That's 405 horsepower and 430 feet-pounds of torque. And my favorite, because I got this on my 2017 F-250, is the C-clamp running LED lights on the front. So that's a big mouthful there. Anybody want to pick any of that apart?
I also heard they have an integrated brake controller too on at least some of them. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go, Johnny.
Finally, and that's big. I'm happy you mentioned it, Tim, because wow, 2015 in Europe, but us 2019 Ranger to 2023, no brake controller from the factory. And I do suspect this to be optional on probably like the F-150. It'll likely be optional on every single trim, but huge to have that brake controller there. And it's weird because when you have a vehicle that, let's say, has Pro Trailer Backup Assist, which everyone says it's completely useless and they'll never use it. But it's also like if you're a 12-year-old kid and still in secret have training wheels on your bicycle, you're not going to go around and say, hey, I've got training wheels on a bicycle. I'm a big boy. So maybe people lie and actually do use Pro Trailer Backup Assist a lot, but people are 100%. I've never had one person. I had a few wives say, oh, that's great, I'm going to use that. And then generally the times it happened, the husband was like, no, honey, don't worry. I'll continue to back up the trailer. So glad you mentioned that, Tim.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to mention too, that as far as the media infotainment system, the video, one of the videos I watched, they point out a good point is that on your Raptor, the front and rear locker engagement is solely on that screen. Unlike the Bronco where you had the hero switches. So, and they had mentioned that, if you use the GOAT dial, that it would turn the lockers on automatically, which we all know it does in the Bronco. If the screen freezes and you're stuck with those on, especially the front ones, you're kind of in a hard place there. But, I'd rather have stuff like that, even though it's all still electric, I'd rather have that be something that I can push a physical button or something. Other than that, I love it. They also talked about how the camera can take up the top part and you can have like maps in the second part, which you can't really do in, like, say, the Bronco. At least I haven't figured it out yet. You have to go back or forth, or you can split screen, which doesn't show as much. But somebody was illustrating that as well. So like you could have your front camera and the 360 camera going like in your off-road mode, but you also can have some of your Bronco app maps, I'm assuming, or like Gaia or Onyx Off-Road or something like that, or Google or Apple for that matter, down below it. So that was something they brought up that I thought was really neat. But yeah, the lockers, I wish they would have gave us some more manual way as opposed to the screen that, like Johnny said, I've had mine in the Bronco freeze. The one I had in the 4Runner, Toyota's Mr. Reliability, but I had it freeze off and on every now and again. So, and granted, the Bronco is mostly to do with CarPlay, but electronics are electronics. So
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you don't be out, stranded. You really need it. What do you, man, I just had something on the back of my mind and I've been trying to say it all night. And I want to say, like, I want to get this out. We were talking about, anyway, I'll interrupt somebody next time I think about it. It's like the third time I spaced this one.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. It's all the hours during the day. No, but really, I think when you look at all the videos that's out today, I mean, the competition must hate it. We're talking about it. Other channels, by the way, it's a busy night tonight on YouTube. I normally live stream this time every night. It's pretty interesting, but it's just a busy night. Now, I guess everybody's excited, right? Because the Ranger, I think, not to the scale of the Bronco, but the Ranger is bringing a lot of attention, and I think properly done, it's going to build even more. Now, I will say this: there was a lot of people. You have the Ranger last year, even though it's the 23 is a different animal, but you've had it, right? The Bronco came back; it's been gone since 1996. It's really cool. It's the retro of the first gen. It's got all the cool tech. People at that time were staying at home, right? They were cooped up. Now they're watching this prime time, very well run ad. Today's a little bit different because there's not that much media exposure compared to the Bronco. How do you think that's going to affect it? That there's not that big launch at 8:00 at night.
You know what? I think it's a lot of positive to it because the launch of both the Lightning and the Bronco overloaded dealerships. And, when you think of the Maverick over the banks opening up back in September, it was too much for the dealerships. And because, if you're in a situation where you have so many clients so many customers and buyers coming in at once, it's just even more of a chance for the dealership to take advantage of the situation. And let's say a dealership figures they're going to get, let's say, well, who knows how many Rangers, but let's say a dealership's going to get 25 Rangers, but they've got, 50 people on day one and day two for that model. Well, it's easy for them to think, well, we have way more demand than supply, so we got to do something. We got to have that expensive nitrogen in those tires.
Even the green caps that come with that, right?
Yeah. So I think it's good that, and they're not throwing everything at customers up front.
Right.
You all talked about it earlier. Tim mentioned that it's good that, you don't have your 9, like with the Bronco, your 9 models up front. And I can tell you the Bronco, from the sales perspective, from dealership, you've got a situation where you have this Bronco coming in at well-loaded F-150 prices, less money to make on them, and unbelievably complicated. You might have, sales staff that are a little grumpy because to this day, I know that, even people who've worked through the entire Bronco system don't know them in and out. It requires, you have to be obsessed to know every little detail about the Bronco. So, on a daily basis, I do usually once a day or two, I will have someone ask me 1 or 2 Bronco questions when they walk away from the person they're trying to serve. But I am Bronco obsessed. And I think the Ranger, it's good that they're doing this way, but I think the Ranger, it is something worth being obsessed about. They've hit everything that the Tacoma needed to hit. So the Tacoma, it's been number 1 in sales, selling about 200,000 units per year. It's been number 1 for the longest time. The 6-cylinder takes a ton of gas, had a bit of reliability issues early on. Their 4-cylinder is actually their actual sweet spot, but it's always rode. It's been somewhat uncomfortable, the Tacoma. It's not. I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's certainly not very comfortable. And, you see this new Ranger using the Bronco platform, as you were all talking about earlier. I think that's fantastic because it's now wider. So wider and longer wheelbase. So naturally, even if you don't touch the suspension, you're going to get a better ride when it comes to, the bumps and the divots and whatnot. But then you also have the rear suspension finally, just like the F-150, making the shocks go to the outside. And, when you're building trucks, the worst thing you can do is put those shocks on the inside of the frame, as some manufacturers do. Then you've got other manufacturers putting it right underneath the frame. Better, but not best. And the best option is put those shocks on the outside of the frame. It gives you more comfort. And because this is a fully boxed in frame, which always generally makes a very, very stiff frame, well, then you've got a bit of a problem. A very stiff frame can mean an uncomfortable ride, but this should actually be very comfortable for all the aforementioned reasons. The shocks being on the outside, the wider and longer frame. I obviously haven't driven this Ranger, but the current Ranger, I feel this Ranger is worth waiting for, because the current Ranger, I'd say the ride quality is a pass. It's a little bit more comfortable than the Tacoma, but this, I think, is going to be leaps and bounds ahead in comfort compared to the current Ranger.
I think so. And Johnny, I remembered my question from earlier. So I have a source that's telling me that there is, at least in the works, and maybe it gets launched, another generation, or at least an updated 2.7. Now, you'd hit on this earlier, how cool it is that, in whatever maybe all the trims that you can order, or at least the upper trims, you can order a 2.7 in this Ranger. So even forget the Raptor 3.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this
XLT
is going to
be
okay. XLT and up. Okay, good deal. So now I hear, though, when you order it, it's going to be a later production, later in the year. So it's, because the 2.3s are trying to really, push those, I guess.
Yeah, and it's about, like you said earlier, well, you all talked about it. Ford's doing two things right now. One, you mentioned this, Dwayne, in regards to marketing. They don't want to just have this crazy excitement up front and then do nothing until the next model, or nothing until the mid-model refresh, which is always between the third, fourth, or fifth year, because the models generally last 6 to 10 years. So, the Bronco is being completely redone in 2030, but rumors that there'll be a 2024 refresh. Originally, they're talking about 2025. So who knows? Maybe they'll address some of the issues we talked about in the Bronco for the next model.
Cup holders.
But, yeah.
Sorry, I went there.
Cup holders.
So, Tim, how many delays did you have on your Bronco build?
I had 8 delays.
Wow.
Nice logo,
Eight. Yeah, I had to change my camera.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So 8 delays. So Johnny, and I'm just trying to think. Well, this is really for Jody. What was your delays like, or postponed builds, or whatever?
So I was the last build week of 2021.
Okay.
Initially, I was the build week of Thanksgiving, but it got pushed back like 3 weeks. They never gave me a reason. And then after it was built, it took like 2 or 3 weeks to get here. Of course, Chicago's not far from Detroit. So, but I mean, other than that, it really didn't have many delays.
Okay. So you're
like a few weeks.
Are we hoping that because the limited trims, we are in a little bit better place, right? You would think, in the workforce and the economy. Well, not the economy but at least the workforce and supply chain's better. Let me just say that. Yeah. So is there a situation there to where we shouldn't have too many delays based on that? Here's my concern. This is, now you have, out of one plant, which is the smaller plants as they go, you have 2 very hot vehicles being built there. That's my only concern, is that do we now get into, well, first it was a low production on the existing Ranger for 2 reasons. One is it's kind of run its duty cycle. The other thing is there was rumblings of this this Ranger coming out. And if you just looked, I was posting these videos this week, just like, well, I'm going to be excited because it gets announced. And, if you get to go look at it, that's great. But if you just look to Australia, you can see the new Ranger. I mean, it is in plain sight. But my point being is, just sure, there's the Americanized or North Americanized version of it. I understand that. But I guess my thing is that if you have these 2 vehicles these two very hot vehicles. I just hope that they can keep the numbers going. First, it was commodities. Now, is it time?
Yeah, and if they want to beat the Tacoma, they're going to have to make 200,000 of these Rangers. So I've got this sneaking suspicion that maybe the current factory is going to end up making only Broncos. And are we going to get some of the Rangers? Are they going to increase the plant size of the Rangers that are made overseas and have these Rangers come in from overseas? Will that be their excuse that, they need to amp up production, that demand is way too high? And will this be the excuse for the Ranger to go overseas? And I know this isn't based on any insider information. I can just say it's a sneaking suspicion because it just makes sense. It'd be a logical decision to make. And in regards to logical decisions, you see Ford making a lot of those. I'm really impressed by Jim Farley. And, one of the things that really impresses me is that he's cutting down. He's put the order out for, less not that they just want to issue less recalls, but they want to get the product right up front. Maybe that's why there was a few months where Super Duties weren't really arriving at dealerships. Maybe that's why there's a few months where Ford Escapes, the new ones, weren't arriving at dealerships. The Escape is very late. We just got our first ones about 2-3 weeks ago. And a lot of that, I highly believe, is about quality control. They want to get it right. But Ford is cutting down the amount of options. At one point, there was 1.5 million F-150s that could exist in one build year. That's crazy when it comes to cost of building. And the F-150, they've always been able to build them like mind-blowingly quick.
Right.
But you want to simplify the builds. You want to simplify the shopping for customers because you don't want the customer to spend. Imagine if we weren't, as Bronco obsessed. Imagine if the Bronco wouldn't have been quite as cool as it is. With the confusion around it, trying to pick one, it would have been pretty easy to spend, a few months trying to pick out the perfect Bronco. And then if something else comes along that's distracting, like, Tacoma at the end of the month, something new and flashy comes along and it's too complicated to pick what you want, well, then maybe you end up getting a Tacoma because you got, too frustrated trying to work on the build and price and build the right Ranger. Well, it's nice that they're cutting back on options for shopping, for cost, and also for just profitability, because there's a cost behind having a lot of options on these vehicles.
Well, if you go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was going to say, any way you go with the Raptor or the Ranger in general, they need to have an Eddie Bauer edition. That's all. And I'm still waiting for that for the Bronco.
I'm wearing Eddie Bauer today, right now. Sometimes in my shows, it's my T-shirts, but I can't show you where I'm wearing Eddie Bauer at the moment. It wouldn't be appropriate for this Dwayne's family show.
Get you one of those Eddie Bauer Canadian swimsuits on.
Basically, yeah.
Hey, so, all right. Here's my thing. I think the mark was missed on 2 items. There's not a Wild Track or some other trim. However, we did say earlier that maybe that's a strategy going forward, that's going to be a next year or the year after type thing, to always keep it fresh or keep it fresh each year. The other thing was Raptor in the tailgate would have been so cool. However, looking at it from a business aspect, for the amount they're going to build, stamping a new tailgate, I don't know if that would have, what would they gain in marketing or brand recognition or whatever? I don't think would make business sense. So I kind of get that, even though I did honestly think those 2 things were coming. So
yeah, I agree with you on that. It would have been cool. At least the Raptor has enough Easter eggs. It's, one of the problems Matty and I have had with our Lightning is we just don't have an emotional connection to it, even though it's Porsche 911 fast, it's Rolls-Royce comfortable. It actually might be more comfortable than a Rolls-Royce. I don't know. I've never gone down, horrible roads at wild speeds in a Rolls-Royce, but it is by far the most comfortable vehicle I've ever been in, that Lightning. But there's a lack of key strengths.
Right.
There's no lightning bolt on the back headrests. At least, the Raptor, they wrote it down a few times. You've got the Ford front grille. You've got, the big selling point are those Fox shocks that are going to perform really well. I played around, jumping around with my F-150 Raptor that I don't have anymore. And I also did it in fields with the Bronco with the Haas 2.0 system. And I have a lot of respect for those Fox shocks. I think they're well worth the money. But yeah, Tim, you're completely right, Dwayne. Having it written on the tailgate would have been a nice little added touch, but there are still some constraints. Things are going better. But if you look at 250 production rate now, we've been given the advice to switch limited orders if people want to get their vehicles sooner for the Super Duties. We've been told take away limited and put them on a Platinum or a King Ranch. So there's something missing from the limited, whether it's the color of the leather, or maybe it's that tailgate, maybe it's just, heck, it could be the logos on the seats. And there's still constraints like that. A huge constraint right now at Ford is the power moonroofs. If you order, your F-150 Tremor, we had like almost 10 Tremors come into the dealership within 2 weeks. Not a single one with roofs. Right now on the dealership, if we forget the Lightnings, there's only one F-150 out of about 35 that has a roof. And anyone who has, a Tremor with a roof and the leather interior, the 402s, we're just not getting any of those. And people have been waiting a long time on their F-150 Tremor 402s.
Hey, speaking of the roof, what do you think, whoever wants to take this one, what do you think about the lack of a sunroof? And also, though, the B&O sound system, for people that complain about it in the Bronco, they should be happier in the Ranger, being that it's a smaller cockpit, and I would assume tighter built for the lack of sunroof or removable top. What do you think?
I think the roof is on fire.
You think the roof is on fire?
Yeah.
Let it burn. Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I'm with you, buddy.
So you mean you could crank up the volume in this one and love it. So when you look at this, and I think today, like I said, watching Joe Rady's review of this, I loved how he really detailed the fact of the longer wheelbase and why does that matter? Comfort in driving, but also the approach and departure. When you look at the rear of the Ranger Raptor, for example, because we keep talking about, and I know, Johnny, you had a good point earlier, don't overlook the Lariat 2.7. Right. And trick it. And we don't really know the build sheets on that. We don't really know what you can do with it. But if you look at the rear of it, the tailpipes are tucked up to the point. The hitch is the lowest part there. But it's going to be pretty incredible, I think, with the off-roading ability of it. No, it's not your rock crawler. It's the Baja. It's the beach here on the East Coast, right? Which then brings me into the other thing. How do you think that the Bronco folks and the Ranger folks are going to play together? Well, I think it's going to be, that's why I changed the name of our show, our live stream. I think they're complementary to each other.
Yeah. I do too. I mean, just coming from the Toyota world, I can tell you that there's no like cliquishness or animosity in general between Tacoma and 4Runner owners. They each have their advantages given what kind of terrain you're on, but what you're used to is for them. But I don't think there's going to be like any rifts. I think if anything, it'll probably help both,
right?
Because it's more of a camaraderie. They're all Ford people, Ford at least enthusiasts. So I think you're going to have some crossover enthusiasm there, but I wouldn't anticipate there being any division. I think if anything, you may see more Bronco meets featuring, more Rangers, because people are going to modify those as well. And you're going to have more Ford meets rather than just strictly Bronco meets, at least in later generations.
Right.
Yeah, and that'll be nice.
Johnny, what do you think about, did I hear correctly, 7,000 pounds max towing?
7,500 pounds max towing. Wow. Definitely hits the spot because the Tacoma, when you go with your 4-cylinder, it towed less than the 6, but it was a little more desirable. The 6 was a bit of a pig. had in the later years had an unfair reputation. Some people thought the 6 was unreliable, but it was just, basically when they first came out, after basically come year 3 of the Tacoma, the 6-cylinder is a fine engine. It's very, very, very reliable. It's just, and it's actually the one that could tow, anywhere from 64 to 6,800 pounds. And a lot comes down, I think a lot will come down to sales success is going to be, the Tacoma has a bit longer of a box because everyone wants the crew, at least in my area, in my region, everyone wants these 4 doors, but we're still getting the 5.5 foot bed with that. And I think if the options would have been, let's say, a 6 foot and a 6.5 foot, depending on your cab configuration, I think that would have been what, as much as I think this Ranger is, the 2.7 liter twin turbo V6 makes the new Ranger with its looks and its comfort. If we forget the box issue, this is by far the best mid-size truck on the market for now. Well, we'll find out at the end of the month if the Tacoma fixes out their little comfort issues, if they fix out, and well, they are. I said it on my channel. I'll bet on it. I put 100% confidence that the Tacoma is essentially going to get the interior of the Tundra. And I said, I think it was like 4 months ago, I said, well, look, we already know what the new Tacoma is going to look like. It's just going to be a slightly modified Tundra. And I like the look of the new Tundra. And I prefer actually the look of the new Tacoma now that it's been leaked. But I think they're really going to address those issues. But I'm wondering if come mid-model refresh, or how long are we going to have to wait to get a bigger box out of the Ford Ranger?
Yeah. Destination Bigfoot Bronco, thank you for that $10 super sticker. We greatly appreciate you. It helps us build out the studio, like the cool chairs that we have. Finally, they got rid of those director chairs that you always felt like you're falling out of. So thank you. We appreciate it. So reinvesting all of the super chats and super stickers back into our business. So thank you for that. We really do appreciate you. So did I miss it because I was like overwhelmed today? Like I said, I do have, a job, and it's kind of hard to do both during the day, but I was trying. Ranger, the best way to put this, I guess, is if Ford is going to build these Rangers, right? They're going to build them in big numbers. The Bronco in big numbers. Ford has talked about sub brands. We said it earlier in the show. The Ford Blue, the Model E, right? Separating the company, but then within that company, sub brands. F-Series is a brand. Mustang is a brand, which is why you have the Mustang Mach-E. I know some people are just diehard. Look, I like Mustangs. I've owned them for years. I've owned Rangers before, at least one, 1985, which I'll tell you a funny story about. But if you look at the sub-brands, Ranger now, it's just a Ranger, but then you have the multiple trims. And as they build that, is that becoming a brand? Do you think that there's something to be said about Ford making these sub-brands? And if that's the case, is there the importance of a Bronco truck, even though the Ranger Raptor technically is the Bronco truck we were looking for? Would it make sense under that sub-brand to put a Bronco body on it with a bed?
I think I'd be very surprised if Ford, I know they kind of already announced like a year or two ago after the Bronco was released that was a no-go, but I'd be very surprised because they'd be direct competitors with the Raptor Ranger.
Yeah, so there's a big difference between the Ranger body and the Bronco body, and I think, you don't have the removable roof, you don't have the removable doors on a Ranger, and I think there's a segment of people that are going to want that. They're going to want, and Johnny, he's up there. He wants to drive around.
I almost bought like my ideal vehicle on the market right now. I wouldn't have a Ford in my yard if it wasn't Fiat that was making the Gladiator. The Gladiator for me is God perfection. It's the arc. It's everything that humanity needs.
Well,
but it's from Jeep, so I don't buy it because
it looks like a
big
man bun
cross.
driving down the street with when their soft tops flip back.
It looks like would you say a man bun?
It looks like it's got a man bun.
Okay.
But to Johnny's point though, there's that segment that's gonna want the removable doors, the removable top, and have the 5-foot bed to, haul their hockey gear around with them.
Well, yeah, and I just think that Ford launching this, and Johnny, you said it earlier, it's almost like a throttled launch, not to overwhelm the system, the dealers. And then at some point you want to sell a lot of vehicles, but you don't want to get a bad name because you have the reservation process, then you have the order process, and then you can't fulfill any of it. So I think you're right and I don't know if any of the upper brass actually understood how the Bronco was going to be received. By the way, for those watching, a really cool podcast to listen to after our show is Bring Back Bronco. If all you just search for that podcast, Bring Back Bronco, it tells the story from Ford. This is a podcast from Ford. It tells the story and all the key players. When the Bronco came out, sort of the original testing between that and the Scout and the evolution all the way to it ending and why, and it coming back and how it almost came back several times. And it almost, the way the story reads, it almost came back as, well, you need to build a second vehicle out of that plant. What do you have? Well, they've done all the homework. They've put all the studies together. It's not just, here's the mechanical stuff. Here's how it's going to look. They have to do market research. They have to do demographics. They have to, put this package together to sell to investors. Because I know if I'm investing, if I'm on the board, I want to know, all right, I want a Bronco too, but what does this mean in dollars, right? What is this going to do? I'm pretty sure that they had a pretty good idea it was going to be strong, but I just really don't think it was going to be this strong.
Yeah, Dwayne, to that point, the problem is that, we're all animals and we're complicated as humans. If you think of, previous models, people get so upset. People get really upset saying, how could Ford not know that the Bronco would be such a huge success? How did they not plan better for this? Which I find is, it's sort of like your base emotional response to a situation, and it's a bit of a panicked response, because I think upon reflection and looking at a bit of history in the automobile world, we look at the Ranger, and it had been 10 years that people had been clamoring for the return of the Ranger. And I lived through it. People, would come in 2015 being like, I want to see the new Rangers. And they'd be upset when I tell them, well, you know what? They stopped making Rangers in 2011. Sorry. And people would, be upset. And generally, if you were to poll the market back in 2015, 16, and poll the market and ask them, do a survey, do you want the Ranger to return? It would have been an overwhelming yes. So let's say you plan your factory, you make all these contracts for parts in advance, and you say, you know what, we're going to, based on people's responses, we're going to sell more than the Tacoma. We're going to sell over 200,000 Rangers per year. Imagine the billions of dollars that would have been lost selling for what turned out to be 75,000 units per year, not 200,000 units. Same thing for the Ford Maverick. People were like so frustrated. How could Ford not know that this would be the biggest success on the market? They should have planned so much better. And I'd say, well, really? Because up until the Maverick came out and then couldn't fulfill demand, the Ridgeline sales were between 22 and 34,000 per year. So how's Ford supposed to think that they're going to have, 6 times the demand or 7 times the demand on this Maverick than a Honda Ridgeline? And the Honda Ridgeline, look at Honda. They must be scratching their heads and be like, wow, how did we double sales? Well, they doubled sales because people get so mad at Ford and that they can't have their Maverick right now because we're all very emotional. Well, a lot of us are emotional creatures. Yep. And if I can't have my sandwich right now, throw it on the ground and storm out of the subway and swear at everyone, get into a fist fight on your way out with maybe even the door.
You said it.
You look on the internet and you watch these videos of people getting upset. And we are by nature often very emotional and not always reflected and rational. But anywho, just to say, that, yeah, they've got a bit of an issue because it's tough. It's so tough to gauge what are sales going to be like. The Maverick, the sales, based on what was already on the market with the Ridgeline, based on how when the Ranger left our market in 2011, why did it leave the market? Because they weren't selling that many, and the investment, they're looking at about $8 billion to make a new Ranger. And when they compared that to the amount of Rangers they sold in 09, 10, and 11, they're like, you know what, this continuing the Ranger doesn't make sense. And not renewing it isn't fair to the North American market. So they continued in other markets to make an unrenewed Ranger, because they're like, well, that's not our market. It's fine if the Brazilians won't won't complain. Just give them a truck that's not expensive, because we've had the same model out for X number of years. A Dodge Ram 1500 classic. You obviously you can sell something for not very much money when you've had the same model for 20 years. So the Ranger just ended up going to markets as an inexpensive choice.
Yeah, and and Jody, I'll ask you a question in just a second, but I was looking at a 23 today, Ranger, driving down the road, and just couldn't help but think, especially now when you compare it to the 24, it was so pointy in the front, so small looking. Yeah. And just the fact that they widened the grill out, the entire thing is wider. I get it's wider and longer, so it's a bigger truck.
Yeah.
But it just looks totally different. Is there a Ranger in your future by chance, or are you still all Team Bronco?
Is that for me or for Johnny?
For Jody, yeah, for you.
Oh, sorry. I'll be honest with you. I've mentioned this in Johnny's chats before too. Is that if I was buying a second vehicle right now, I'm not getting rid of the Bronco. God knows I've invested way too much, and I'm probably looking at 30, 40K so far.
Yeah.
After buying it.
Wow.
So I'm probably looking more towards having more of a daily. And that watching Johnny's channel, I really got really focused on the Maverick. Unfortunately, there's still some restraints there, but I think at some point the Maverick might be the one that I go to for a secondary vehicle. Now, if money and time wasn't any object, and I didn't spend so much money modifying the Bronco, I might consider getting a Ranger. I had a Ranger many years ago that I loved, and it was a great engine. It had the 4-liter V6 in it, and it was a pretty stout engine and a pretty good truck. So I would definitely consider one in the future, but I think my next purchase would probably be a Maverick.
Yeah, so I've got to say something right here. No, this is not a vape pen. This is a look. You can see the name brand. This is a Highlander.
I'm defending you in the live chat. You don't have to address it. I'm out here saying, no, that's not Dwayne's style.
No, that's not my style. It's a little bit, yeah. No, I'm the worst I ever do is Sam Adams now. Hey, so by the way, microbreweries. There is a bunch of them around here. They've popped up everywhere. There are Gavin and I went to a car meet last week outside of one. It was kind of funny. See everybody walk around with a bruise. I was like, well, somebody's got to drive you home. It ain't going to be me. But you're seeing a lot of these car shows and stuff. And there's a lot of these breweries in our area that have these off-road, Broncos. There was actually an event where they had Jeeps on one side, Broncos on the other, and it was kind of funny. They were like, well, we just want everybody to play nice, and most people are. There's a few out there. But anyway, get back on the subject. So when you look at the tech, I really can't wait for the drive reviews. And I say I can't wait. I can't wait just to see the other trims. We know the Ranger Raptor. It's been heavily filmed and documented and talked about from Australia. And we know now we pretty much have that Ranger Raptor. But it is really cool to see it here, and I'm not minimizing it at all. I'm saying thank you, Ford, for getting it here finally. Because I really think that when you look at the landscape, they're going to bring in new buyers to Ford, which is great for Ford. They're going to bring in more people that, they want the truck, but they want to go off road. So that's going to be their fit now. That's it. Yes, here's other vehicles you can go buy and do that. But these are not people that are looking. They're not into the Gladiator. They're not into, doing something with with a Toyota or whatever, they kind of like, Chevy, Ford, or whatever. They just want that vehicle, but it needed to be a little bigger. It needed to be more capable. And now Ford has delivered on all of that. So I really think you're going to pull people from Maverick, from F-150, from other brands, from Bronco. I do think that number is going to be a lot smaller, but I do think there'll be the people with the Bronco that are going to go to the Ranger, and then the Ranger buyer that's always been there. I just think it's really cool. And it's kind of completing that cycle.
We'll take something that I've, being on the field, something that I've seen is people coming in for a Bronco, and then when they find out it only tows 3,500 pounds, which is still a lot of weight, but in their mind only tows 3,500 pounds. This is going to, sponge up. It's going to sponge up that demographic that came in for a Bronco but didn't buy a Bronco because it doesn't tow enough.
All right, Johnny, we got to address something here. Tim, what do you have going on in the background, my friend?
Oh, I took a trip to Bikini Bottom.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's kind of funny there, actually. Tim, what do you think? Have you didn't get a chance to really go over the interior a lot? Have you studied any of the tech on this at all? Are we getting the trail maps on this? I think I was going to ask that earlier.
I definitely see Ford is setting this application up for it to be able to push that out to other vehicles. I don't know how much of the, obviously the Raptor version will be off-road capable. I don't know about some of the other trim levels. But I definitely see them leaning that direction. And I've got a lot to say about the app, but that might be a different live stream.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think everything from that shifter, the Palm E shifter, I think it's clean. The stitching, all the orange, is it too much orange for some people? Sure. It's going to be too much in the Ranger Raptor. I can't wait to see what are they going to offer any other accents at all in, say, the Lariat or any other trim, or is it just going to be the Ranger Raptor with that code orange? I know code orange is a Ford performance color, and it's going to stick with that. Now, whether it comes back in a body color for it or not, who knows? I will tell you that there's several colors they're coming out with. The Azure Gray, I did the review of the Outer Banks Bronco against mine. And there's a thumbnail here on a video on our channel, and you can see the two. Area 51 is a flat color. Azure Gray is a metallic. And it's a different shade, right? But it's in that same family. But I have to tell you something. On the F-150 Raptor with the amber C-clamp lit up, it's something about that. The combination, the amber, the Azure Gray, and the black really makes that one clean looking vehicle.
Yeah, I agree.
We had an F-150 Azure Gray on the lot, and I regretted not paying the $800 to have it on my Lightning. I said, this is one of those times where being cheap is really biting me. and then to rub it in, our buddy Dave from All Terrain Nation, he did a review of an Azure Gray Raptor, and I was like, man, I really messed up taking a white Lightning. What was I thinking? That Azure Gray is really hot color.
We've come a long way. Henry Ford said, and I think I remember this quote here. Big O said in the comments, Henry Ford said it's best. Henry Ford said it best. You can get any color that you want as long as it's black, referring to the Model T. Yeah, and that's kind of the attitude here, is that Ford's given us a lot of colors. One thing that's not out there is, and there's a new green coming out. But one thing that's not out there is that really bright, that lime, that grabber orange or whatever, I think that's one of those things there. Allie, I agree that the Azure Gray, we love the eruption green because of metallic. And I'll tell you that had Azure Gray been out, would we have picked it over the Area 51? Probably would have, because of the metallic. But I will also tell you that I love the Area 51, no regrets whatsoever. I was afraid I was going to regret it, but I didn't. All Terrain Nation, thank you earlier for that $5 super chat. Thank you very much for that. Let's see what we've got going on. So what's the biggest takeaway? You look at the reviews out there. Is there anything you're shocked by? Anything that any one of you something that we're getting that you didn't expect at all?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway, and I saw this on All Train's video, where the large vertical screen was available on the XL. That to me was because I'm like, a standard Bronco infotainment system is only 8 inches. So
hey, whoa, only 8 inches. Come on, you're gonna make all the Jeep guys feel tiny, and make them think their wives are gonna leave them. 8 inches is huge. It's a huge screen.
Yeah,
but not compared to the 12 inch.
Yeah. Well, what can you do? What can you do?
Yeah. Well, and
we can't all have 12-inch screens.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, Jody. That's a good point. So it says, even when you're looking at the XL, that wow, it's so much better than just the last generation, the last year. Yeah, it's so much better in the tech rise, and I think it's becoming standard for vehicles to have that much tech in them anyway.
It won't be on the Tacoma. Yeah, I bet.
Well,
I bet $20.
Ford.
It'll be 5-year-old tech on the Tacoma.
Yeah. But the new one though, I bet is going to come with a standard 8-inch.
Hey, look, there's what Tim looks like without his beard. You see that?
That is. I ran and shaved my beard off real quick, and
that's pretty cool. Put on your.
I think Johnny's right. I think the Tacoma is going to basically be like the new Tundra as far as the electronics and interior. Toyota's, and that's the bane of my existence when I had that 5th gen 4Runner was the lack of updated tech. It was so far behind. It was a 2018 model, so that wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah. So here's my thing. Let's see how the orders go. When the order, Johnny, you said it's the 24th of this month. Is that
orders will be the 26th of May, and production is going to be the 7th of August. So they'll start building these, and I haven't heard anything about it officially being announced that it's going to be built in the same factory as the Bronco, but I don't think they need to say anything because I guess it's just a continuation. Because I would think that if they're going to build it somewhere else right off the bat, we would have been told.
Would it be possible to build the Raptor at MAP and then all of the other ones so they could keep up with production? Because they're already tooled for this in Australia. I don't know how much it would, or how much of a pain it would be to import them in from Australia, and I don't know if that would create additional taxes or duties, but they have that ability.
No, I remember a story of them retooling, and Allie just said it too, but I was getting ready to say they were retooling for this new. Now, Tim, that's a good point. If they were going to build enough Ranger Raptors, would that be then okay? You know that they're going to build just that one there, but they built obviously the test mules or press vehicles they built there. But that's a good point. I just really think, and I said this a long time ago, if the public reacts to the Ranger like they did half of what they did to the Bronco, they're going to have a production problem just to get it done.
Well, I mean, guys, be mindful. The 4Runners are all made in Japan. There's none made here in America. So, I mean, it's not unprecedented for that to happen.
Right.
Well, Toyota and most of the Japanese car companies, although a lot of them have, brought production to the United States, they had that pipeline in place to import vehicles from overseas, but they do pay duties and stuff on it, where with Mexico and Canada compared to the United States because of NAFTA, that's they can bring the stuff across the border without any problems.
Yeah, and then there's also labor negotiations and things like that. So all of that figures into where they're built. So I'm pretty certain it's just going to be, it's going to be built here. Now, also consider this: Ford probably have some really good economists. I think my camera's getting ready to fall there, folks. Hey, y'all carry on this conversation.
What was in that? What was in that?
It's my cat.
So. Just to carry things on real quickly, I just want to mention that on the current site, it's not the built-in price, but I'm not seeing any code orange, which was a color I hope to see on your regular Broncos, but I'm not seeing it on the Ranger. And I know a lot of people have been eyeing that color. So that is actually what Dwayne asked, what surprised us with the unveil of this vehicle. That's one thing that really surprised me, is not seeing the code orange there. Now, the 2.7 liter twin turbo V6 didn't surprise me, because internal rumors going back at least 6 months were saying, and I was talking about it roughly 6 months ago, that there was talk of having, it was actually a promise of having an optional V6, but an optional V6 could have meant just the Raptor. However, normally when you say optional, it doesn't mean the option is a truck that very few are going to be able to get. On that note, everybody, I've got to go take care of the wife. So I'm going to, if you allow me, just be signing out.
It's a family-friendly show here, Johnny.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, but
I didn't realize I could mean that.
Yeah, no. Tell Marie said hello.
Yeah. I will. I just didn't mean it like that, folks, but that's hilarious, Tim. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, Johnny.
See you, Johnny. Bye. All right. Well, cool. So we're back. So where do we want to take this conversation from here?
One thing, Dwayne, I haven't heard you mention at all, but I hear the Ranger Raptor. The Ranger Raptor's coming with a CGI block.
Yeah, well, it's the 3.0. I mean, it's the same as it's the same engine as, and I don't care what reviews I've heard, it's the same exact engine. It's just detuned, and then maybe that plumbing you mentioned. So the CGI allows for a lot of stuff. The main thing is with boost, and when you increase boost, and Ford loves to. I had someone on our channel giving me grief about my first 2.7 video where we talked about CGI and turbos and everything, and they said, well, compare it to apples. I hate it when people don't compare apples to apples. They're doing apples and oranges. And I'm like, well, I'm talking about what Ford's doing with their small displacement engines, right? Just like saying, well, yeah, we're talking about 35-inch territory tires. We're not talking about bias ply tires from the 60s. When you look at the CGI block and the fractured or the cracked main bearings, they're adding a lot of stability in the lower end, and torque. High torque engines put a lot of beating and banging on bearings. They beat and bang the thrust bearings that keeps the crank from going front to back, and also the oiling of it. So Ford's had to do a lot of work on this engine, just because it's going to have a lot of low RPM, high torque situations. That makes any sense. And so the CGI block is a perfect material.
Yeah. Craig, go with the pairs. You'll be better with pairs.
I mean, that's a good point, Dwayne. It's the Bronco Raptor is more high speed off road, whereas the Ranger, being a pickup truck, is definitely going to probably be more geared towards towing. And so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I'm happy they did. Now the question is, have they changed anything with some of the emissions? Because if you look at the 2.7 has the hot gas recirculation part of the EGR system. The 3.0 and the Raptor does not. And did they add it back? Is that reason why they're down on horsepower? Is it simply just electronically a tuning thing, right? I think it would be, I don't know, if you could get the 3.0 as a very expensive option in any trim, that would be really cool, right? Could you imagine that you've got an XLT kind of basic, but you have the 3.0 in that? But I understand they've got to keep it for the premium trim. They got to keep it in a limited production as well. Let's see. Yeah.
Big O had a comment there about high torque.
Yeah, most vehicles have high torque and less horsepower. That's true.
The way around that is just more stickers. Put more stickers on there, you get more HP,
and it's cheaper.
It is cheaper.
Yeah, and it's,
I mean, think about I'm going to date myself here a little bit, and I'm sure you guys remember this too. When we were younger, Mustangs and trucks had similar. They all had 302s, 351s.
Yep.
But obviously, exact same thing. The trucks were built or made a little bit differently to highlight those torque, whereas the Mustang was more about horsepower. So I think maybe not the exact same, but probably the same mentality, I would assume.
Right. Well, the whole idea behind the horsepower and torque is horsepower is how fast you can turn the shaft. Torque is the ability to turn the shaft.
Yeah.
That's sort of like the basic. And torque's another thing too. Is the cam phasers enables Ford to change. They can't change the lift of the cam, but they can change the ratio in which the valves open in proportion to a combustion cycle. And so they're able to change timing. They're able to change that. Torque, though, is a matter when it gets down to it of stroke in the engine. And so, the stroke of the engine is really where the torque comes from. That's why diesels have a low RPM and a really high torque. Just the nature of the rods and the 6.7 are crazy long. I don't know the measurements right off, but it's pretty substantial. So I think that when you look at the performance of this, think about Baja, though. They have these turbos who I keep seeing the comments. Hey, they're so small. Ford did it because there's less mass to spin up. So the smaller the compressor and the smaller the turbine where the exhaust hits, the faster it spins up, right? And then they're able to keep this thing just like the Bronco Raptor, to keep it spooled up, to have that sort of instant boost next time you're on the gas for a few seconds. I mean, it doesn't last long, but if you're in the gas, off the gas, in the gas, you've got the torque available, the RPMs ready to go. So I think that performance-wise, this thing is going to just run like crazy. So I don't know. One of us needs to get one.
I'm surprised that Ford didn't put the gas struts on the hood. I noticed that in and I think it was All Terrain's video that they didn't do that. You would think that would be something they would have learned from the Bronco, since so many vehicles come with that standard now.
Yeah. I don't want to put the aftermarket out of business.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Big O said usually domed heads. These heads here have a little bit of a pocket in it, but the pistons are relieved. They have the reliefs cut in them. I honestly haven't looked down. There's a slight dish in the piston as well. So it's what's the compression on a 2.7? 10.3 to 1, I think. And the stroke is longer, but anyway, getting into the technical stuff. Also, like the idea that oil catch cans, wouldn't it be funny if they just came with them? I mean, they sort of did with the GT500. They just came in the trunk, so you would install it. I guess it's an emissions thing. But it's just, Tim, Joe, do you have an oil catch can, right?
Yeah, same one you do.
Okay, JNL OSC. Tim, what about you?
No.
And what about oil changes? What are you doing on oil changes between them?
I changed it every oil. I actually just changed it not long ago, and it had probably, of course, you can't hardly see the camera, but probably about an inch deep after because I change every 5,000 miles of oil that was in the can.
So you did 5,000 miles?
Yeah, because that's how often I change my oil change.
Good. No, that's really good. Tim, what about you?
I changed it at 10,000. I follow the book recommendations.
Yeah.
I figure it'll stay in warranty that way.
I can't talk to you about carbon buildup or anything. Just like don't care. Poor time and chain.
I will say my dealership here in Chicago, because of the rust belt and the road conditions and the winters here, they did recommend more frequent oil changes, but I don't. That's just what they told me. But
I think
that's what I'm used to doing anyway with the 4Runner and previous.
Jody, I think that's for their benefit.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it doesn't hurt them to get the extra money.
Well, you know what you could do as a test is, Tim, and of course, different regions, different driving habits, different fuels, and all that other stuff. But why don't you guys, Jody, you send an oil sample to Blackstone. Tim, you do it and see what the numbers come out.
It sounds like a video. And Jody and I are relatively close. I'm a little further south. But yeah, we're not we share a common climate, but I think that would be a good test between the two of them to get a sample of the oil and have it tested.
Yeah, and the controlled test would be you did it with the same engine, right? But then the argument, because see, their first tests are coming back a lot of silicone, and not a problem. Don't anybody worry, but a lot more silicone, at first, and then you've got a lot more alloys where bearings are breaking. And people say, well, engines don't break anymore. They absolutely do, and you can prove it by oil samples.
Yeah.
And so as the oil changes after the first one goes, those numbers start to drop, silicone and alloys and coppers and things like that, unless you have a track record of, say, 10 that the numbers were consistent, and then suddenly one starts going higher. Copper goes higher or something like that. Now you've got to start looking at bearings and stuff. But I think what would increase is carbon.
Yeah, Big O brought up a point, and I was going to ask you about this, Jody. How many miles do you have on your Bronco?
I want to think it's around 22, 23 because it just hit 20 before we went to Supercell.
Okay, I just rolled over 25.
Oh, so we're pretty close.
So yeah,
you're close enough.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Government accounting here, it'll work.
Hey, and have you ever done anything with Blackstone before?
I haven't.
You go to their website, they send you the sample kit for free, and then follow the instructions, send it back. That's when you pay them, and it's pretty cool to get it. Some people it's not necessary, not for the average person, but the average person's not on YouTube doing videos about all the cool little quirks and features, right?
How much is the oil analysis?
Becky pays the bills. I want to say it was $30 or $50 somewhere.
So, am I hearing that Jody and I could just submit the bill to Becky and
no,
never pay it?
No, she pays the bills, but she does know where they come from.
Oh,
yeah. Whew. No, don't get me in trouble.
We'll have it put under.
We'll get Dwayne in trouble.
No,
only if Dwayne gets to put the video on his channel, right?
Everything I buy has a PO, right? And there's a way of tracking it. So I don't even get to go out and just buy stuff, right? Anyway, complicated stuff. But look, we'll wrap this up really soon. It's 11 o'clock. I appreciate you being here for this long. And I think that today was a big day for Ford. It was a big day, for the review of this next vehicle, right? I mean, trust me, you can see the name change in our live stream. There will be a ton of Ranger content, and Ford will see it. I can guarantee if they're not watching this right now, they will definitely see, because we want to take this stuff down. Like with the Mustang, there's a lot of stuff about that 4th gen Coyote. I've seen some people in the comments on other videos saying, oh, it's the same thing. They just tweaked a few things. No, it's actually different. It's little things like the throttle bodies. Well, it's got 2 throttle bodies on it. Yeah, but how they work. They're not just 2 sitting there doing the same thing. They work in proportion differently. Ford's really doing that cool stuff to make us in the ICE vehicle fan club happy. And then, of course, they're trying to do on the EV stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I think they're really playing both sides of it, trying to appease. They should, right? And
they should. Yeah.
Look, I have nothing against EV at all. Everything I look at is from outside of family is business, right? And I just look at investment. And I look at return, velocity of money. How quick does it turn around? And when you look at some of the numbers and some of the losses, they're trying to do it too soon. And I think evolution comes. But I do know one thing. The bread and butter is the ICE products, and they're doing it right now with the Mustang, with the Bronco, and now with the Ranger. Mm-hmm. And good job to Ford for that. I mean, Australia's had it, good for them, but now we're getting ready to get it along with Canada. So any parting words, any comments, anybody want to comment on anything? Did we not answer a question? Did we not hit on something you want to talk about, Tim? And Jody, what do you think?
For me, I'm just glad to be a part of this conversation. I think it was a really good conversation. I think we were all peeking at YouTube when we had a chance today just to kind of catch up on what all was going on with that Ranger Raptor. And I'm excited for it. I look forward to, more Rangers being at car meets, being at off-road parks, and being at events. So I welcome it wholeheartedly. I hope they end up doing more, with it, and hopefully maybe they'll add like a Badlands or Wild Track trim for the people that aren't lucky enough to get the Raptor can still have a more off-road geared version of the Ranger.
Yep.
For that purpose. But other than that, I'm very happy to the direction Ford's going with it.
Well, Tim, no chance you're going to get one, or at least not right now. I don't say no chance, but you're just not on the market for it. But is this something you plan on doing a video on?
I can see aspects of it. I think the kind of the focus with the channel is more outdoor family fun, and the Bronco definitely fills that mission for me. So I'm not so much in the like the automotive space,
right?
But if this is a competitor in like to a certain degree with the Gladiator, in that sense of being able to get people outside, and I'm all for it. And if there's content in that realm that can that I can make videos about, I'm going to do it. Yeah.
The overlanding side of things, like I said, the company earlier I mentioned, Primo Works. I'm sure that they're going to have the list of stuff coming out for this for the overlander. So maybe the paths cross in the woods somewhere with another camper overlander type thing.
Speaking of overlanding, I can't remember if it was Jody or if it was Johnny that had said something about more people kind of going away from the SUV and over to the truck for.
I think it's trending that way.
Overlanding, yeah.
Yeah, for overlanding specific. I think it's people are trying to go more for the truck so they get the bed racks.
Yeah, and so they don't lose their space. The other thing I think that, and I don't know how prevalent it's been. I've seen it with some of the more full-sized pickup trucks, is going to a closed cabin or a box they can put on the back that's closed up, like some of the old campers that you would bed campers. And I'm wondering if that's going to start to see a resurgence, so you can get into more 4-season type camping than what you would with just a pop-up tent.
By the way,
or just a rooftop tent.
I had somebody private message me and it said, well, you started a comment earlier and didn't finish it. It was about economists. Ford has I'm pretty sure really good handle on economists. And, we were talking about building another plant or building the Ranger somewhere else. Also think about this is that if they're seeing a slowdown of just vehicles in general in the future, then it's worth the short-term pain of the scheduling for the long-term balance, right? If they're expecting numbers to drop in vehicles, right? But that's like housing. We've heard for years, well, the housing market's going to crash. Well, real estate's local. I don't care what's going on in any cycle. Real estate is local. If you're in Florida right now, you're still cranking out the units. You're getting them built. We just are so many doors short of meeting basic demand. Forget good states, bad states. We just don't have enough houses. So I don't necessarily see vehicle sales. I just know that not everyone has to have a Ranger Raptor, a Bronco Raptor, or even a 250. Now, in the work area, we're really hurting in that, the work truck space. But overall, I do think that if they're going to stay there, either they have a plan to speed it up, make it more efficient, or they sort of want to just throttle that. And maybe that's why there's a throttled launch with this thing right now, because they don't want to overwhelm it. So anyway, we talked about that. I think it's pretty cool. The vehicle's cool. It's great. And who knows, maybe I'll get to drive one soon. I can assure you we're working on that. Let's see. Last comment here. Bronco 78 said, maybe not last comment. And thank you everyone for the comments. If I didn't get to your comment tonight, I'm very sorry about that. Bronco 78 Adventure said, look around the area and there is a sign of things slowing down. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely signs everywhere. I mean, we see it. NAHB has some really good handle on the economy too, and we see it. I have a camper shell on the last 7 or 8 trucks until I bought my new F-150. 2,500 nowadays. Yeah, and that's probably 2,500 is probably what a basic camper shell, right? And if you really start to okay, no, Bronco 78 said no signs of slowdown. Okay, well,
and to be honest, we
do
a
here.
good RTT would be about that much too.
Yeah, and all right. So look, we're gonna wrap this stream up tonight for everyone watching and staying this late. I appreciate you. It's a great show tonight. We had a lot of great content. I mirror what Jody said. It was a lot of good stuff. Thank you for Johnny being here earlier. Tim, thank you as always.
Yeah.
We did not talk about the trail maps, did we?
Oh, we did not.
Can you want to squeeze that in, Jody? You have like 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sorry, I'm getting ready to wrap the show, and it just hit me. I don't know if you texted me something. Tim, tell us about the trail maps apps in the Bronco.
It is not ready for market. That's about the polite way I can say it. There is a lot of things. I've done a couple videos on it. One, in front of the computer, or actually on the iPhone. Another one out in the vehicle. There's a lot of bugs, and the development model is basically using the subscribers and users as beta testers. And that's one thing when you sign up for it. It's another one. It's just kind of thrust upon you because, hey, we've got this app available. So there's a lot of neat things in it. It's comparable to Gaia. It's comparable to Onyx from that standpoint, although everything in there is curated by Ford. So it's trails and stuff that I believe their team feels that the Bronco can handle.
Right.
I can see how this can be rolled out to other vehicles in the off-roading space under the Ford umbrella. The big one that's really got me torqued up is you have to log into the program, and if you're somewhere where you don't have internet access, i.e. somewhere on a trail, Ford marketing, if you're listening, it may not have internet access, that app is worthless to you. So it's something that I think I understand why they need people to log in.
Yep.
But they have to have a kind of like a bypass option, to maybe go to downloaded maps, or maybe it's some other things like, I recorded while I was on the trail or the fire road or whatever there at the state forest. So maybe if by not logging in, maybe you don't get some of those features or whatever. I'm not sure what the best avenue is, but as it sits right now, I don't really think it's ready for market.
Yeah.
At least for wide scale distribution. And I'm getting a lot of feedback from on both Instagram and my YouTube channel of people that are experiencing the same issues, and they're frustrated about it because I have to look at everything through a lens. I am professionally a data center engineer. IT is what I do for a living, but that's only a small percentage of the Bronco owner base that they don't necessarily either have the skills to understand it or the patience to deal with it. And I think in the scale of in the big picture of things, I think it's going to be another kind of egg on the face of Ford. Unfortunately, with that, I kind of wish they might have rolled that out to a limited test group of people that are knowledgeable with technology and everything, and could help them work some of these bugs out before they sent it out.
Yeah, field test and beta.
Yeah, and maybe they did, and they just didn't call me. And that's possible.
Well, maybe maybe the same thing happened to my review invitation that happened to that. Jody, what do you think about it?
I mean, I agree with Tim. I watched his videos too. I played around with it a little bit. I've used Gaia for a few years, and I've used Rad or Onyx Road off road somewhat here recently. I have subscriptions to both. I would not drop a subscription to either one of those and rely on this for the simple fact of what Tim said. Most of the trails that you hit are out of cell range. I mean,
yeah.
You go to Colorado, you go to Moab, heck, even in Tennessee, when we were at Supercell, there were spots down there that were spotty.
Yep.
And if you don't have that, the map's useless. I mean, I downloaded a ton of the maps for offline use, but then I found out, that you have to log in. So I don't know, Tim, did you try, if you log in while you have cell service, but you travel outside cell service, does that go away or does it still work?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Once like where I was at when I got on in the beginning, when I started to log into things to do the video, I was down in a valley where there was no coverage. I went up to the top of the ridge on that road, and then I had a couple bars, but that's a 12,000 acre state forest. They don't put cell service in there. They don't. I mean, so what I get is whatever the closest tower is to the outer perimeter of the park.
Yeah,
but
I got potential. I just don't think it's there yet. I totally agree with Tim.
Yeah. The other thing, and this was something that Jody asked me offline, was, did I see a way to be able to share maps? And I think that's another one. I mean, they have a great option. You can build your own map, put your own waypoints in, do your own directions, your own photos and stuff like that. But how do you share that with the community? How do you share that with your local off-roading group, your Bronco group, that maybe you guys are going to go do a trail somewhere? There's not that mechanism. I mean, it's great. Yeah. Whoever's leading the trail run could probably do that. But, I think everybody that's got a Bronco, that's got the trail app, would want to follow along. So,
Jody, did you see that? I'm sorry, Tim. Bronco 78 said, Jody, what is your preference? Your preference from Onyx or Gaia?
Well, I think Gaia.
I see your comment now.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, when I started using Gaia, it was really the only thing out there. Gaia, I think, was made initially not necessarily for off-roading, so it wasn't really off-road focused or geared, but they've kind of adapted to it because so many overlanders started using it. And it's gotten better over the years. They've added different layers and such that, with National Forest Service road maps and stuff like that, it's gotten a lot better. I think Onyx off-road, what little I have used it, because I've only been a subscriber for about a couple of months now, my first impression of it is that if you don't have the resources or the people who were willing to share GPX files, or if you're not signed into some web service that provides those, I think Onyx Off-Road, as well as the Bronco app to a lot smaller extent, it will help you find places to go because they're already on there. But I've not really had a chance to really use it like out of cell range, farther off. I've just used it here around Chicago just to kind of see what's out there. So as at this point, I think the Onyx Off-Road is probably more intuitive, user-friendly, especially for somebody who doesn't have experience using either. Whereas I think Gaia, there's a little bit of more of a learning curve, I think, there. I think either one would work great if what you're going to use is just a matter of what your, somebody with an IT background like Tim, probably either one would be easy. But somebody who's not very tech savvy, I think the Onyx might be the better option, just for that reason.
I've had Onyx for a little over a year. I did do a video about it, probably not the best video that I did, but when I was looking, I'm sure Guy has evolved a little bit, but when I looked at it, I saw a program that was really, it had its roots in hiking trails. That's where it kind of came from, and then they kind of expanded it out from there, where Onyx was I think built from the ground up, being off-road trails, snowmobile trails, because Onyx actually has a couple different. They have the snowmobiling, hiking one. They have the auto one, and then they also have a hunting version that gets into property maps and GPS, and so you don't accidentally cross over into somebody else's property. So that, I mean, they all have good things, but the other one at the time, and I'm assuming Gaia has evolved a bit, was that Onyx actually allowed you to both use your phone and your Apple CarPlay, and I think they also integrated Android in and around that same time too, where I don't think that was available at all with Gaia at that time. I'm sure it
is now, but I'll be honest with you, I think that Onyx is more user friendly with CarPlay. And to get back to your point, I think Onyx Off-Road is more focused on off-road. You know, I didn't even realize they had a hunting app till when I was in Tennessee last month for Supercell. My brother, who hunts a lot down there, pulled it up. But yeah, I mean, I think that Onyx Off-Road is more focused for off-roading, overlanding, whereas Gaia, it's gotten a lot better over the years, but it's still, you know, the main Gaia purpose is for people who like to hike and do those sort of things, as opposed, and they've just kind of added the off-roading as more people have entered that realm, so to speak. But I think Onyx Off-Road is the more friendlier one as far as for users.
Hey, Tim, you see the comment on the screen there from Big O? It's a sat-based program may be more useful. Most vehicles have navigation anyway.
Yeah, so the selling point, well, it's not even selling point, because at least right now the app is free. The value proposition isn't so much in the satellite maps or the navigation. It's in the trail maps, being able to identify where trails are at, and all the pertinent information that kind of goes around it, with the distance of the trail, the different types of obstacles, being able to look at that both in satellite view and in a regular topographic map. And you know, the nice thing is you can download that package of the trail. This one doesn't give you any option. You have a couple options that you can download with, so you can do whether or not you want satellite images, or just the topographic map. And then the other option is, do you want to download any of the photos from the waypoints that are already in their system? So you get that, but it's very specific to that trail. One of the things with Onyx that I like is you can actually build your maps out on your computer, not on your phone or your tablet with the Ford app. But you can do that, and then you can highlight, you know, an area. Maybe it's 3 trails in the same general area, and you can take a square, highlight what you want to do, and say, all right, send that to my phone. And then when your phone logs in, it pulls that and downloads that information to your phone. So there's more flexibility, but like I said, it's a work in progress, and there is definitely room for this to grow. My frustration point is that they released the product and said, hey, here you go. We know you've only been waiting since 2021 to get your hands on this. And then some basic things. I mean, there's app crashes. The one common one I'm hearing is when I go to hit the button to record my drive, that it crashes their app, and they go through that process 2 or 3 or 4 times. I have found just in that to restart my phone, and that helps, but I shouldn't have to restart my phone every day. Kind of thing. The one thing that it does that as far as I know, Gaia and Onyx does not do, is the ability to record your drive forward facing. Now it's using the camera from your cell phone. It doesn't use any of the onboard cameras. I wish it would. And then it overlays the telemetry. So from the time you hit record, you get your distance, you get your time, you get engine RPMs, you get pitch, roll, steering wheel direction. You get whether you're in 2 high, 4 high, or 4 low, and you will get indications of your forward and rear lockers, whether they're engaged or not. So that's a fair amount of
that's a lot of info. Yeah,
telemetry. And with the pitch and roll and the tire, they actually have graphics on there, so you can see which way you're off camber or going forward and going back. Now, some of the things I really like about that is that can be used, one, for bragging rights, right, and also for educational purposes. So somebody might be out and recording, going through the obstacles. You can at least see the forward camera. If they could capture, if you had like the 360-degree camera system to capture that, kind of like the Tesla has, you can see all the cameras, to maybe capture all that data with the telemetry. I think that would be a pretty cool presentation, either for bragging or for educational purposes.
Bronco 78 said, here in North Georgia and surrounding areas, it can be hard to find service roads and such using standard maps. And so these things are very critical for, forget when you're out on the trail, you can follow someone else or follow the trail, but to find the trail, period, is what you want. Also, he said a lot of info, but isn't most of that available on the Bronco screen? I think the difference is you're able to overlay it to the map, and then you can share that to someone so they can see the terrain you were in.
Oh, no. It's video. It's actual front camera video. Well, you put your cell phone up, so it's recording off your cell phone. Now, that one question came up was with audio, and whether or not you wanted that captured. In the settings, there is the ability for you to turn off audio, but I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's because so far in the recordings I've done, it has not picked up any audio. They're silent, but the option of audio is turned on. So I don't know if that implies microphone, like we're capturing people talking, or if it's vehicle noises that are going to get picked up.
Gotcha.
So that's one. It has options for 720 and 1080p, 720p and 1080p for video, which for most people is cool. I wish it would allow me.
4K.
My phone shoots in 4K. I shoot all my videos in 4K. I would have liked to have had the ability to capture 4K, and I'm sure that's a programming option that can be changed. It's probably because of Android, they probably don't have that ability. And the other thing, like the maps, I will say this, regardless of whose program it is, the maps are only as good as the people providing the data for those. Most, I know with Onyx, they have people that go out and users that can update stuff and get submitted, and it probably goes through a validation process before it gets integrated in. Same thing with pictures and stuff like that. I'm assuming Gaia has something, and I don't know if Ford is going to know why they wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think work in progress. We're gonna.
That's what I've labeled it. It's a come on, Ford. It's a work in progress,
man. Yeah.
Hey, one quick note. I did notice one of the comments earlier. Somebody asked about WeBoost. I've got WeBoost, and I know Tim's probably familiar with it as well. So the thing about WeBoost is that you have to have a signal for it to be a benefit. So if you have zero signal, WeBoost doesn't do anything for you. I have that's probably one of the things that I bought, because I bought it when I had the 4Runner, that I would not probably buy again, just because I just don't think it's beneficial. I mean, I'm sure it is, but I've not been able to tell a huge difference with it. I know other people claim they have, but for WeBoost to make a difference, you have to have at least one bar. You have to have it because all it does is amplify the signal that you got. It doesn't create a new signal out of nowhere.
So it's a signal repeater.
Yeah, it's basically an amplifier. Yeah,
because you're transmitting to it. It's picking your signal up and reamplifying it, and it's not much different than a lot of buildings when you get into like city areas and buildings where you're below ground. You may not be able to pick up cell phone signals. So what they do is they buy these repeaters that'll set up outside on the roof and then rebroadcast down in the building so people can use their cell phones. That kind of has dropped off now that almost all new cell phones, at least smartphones, do voice over IP calling now. So you can just, as long as you've got a Wi-Fi connection, you can connect. But that works in the exact same process. You're putting an antenna up high on the outside. You're not using the internal antenna of your phone. So by doing that, you increase your ability to connect to a cell phone tower. But to Jody's point, if there's no signal, there's no signal.
Got it. Just nothing to boost. Well, we'll see how it progresses and more people use it. I know Trail Cartel was posting on Instagram over the weekend. They were using it and it looked like they were having fun with it. So, and then you're gonna see the reviews come out. You got to let it be out for a little bit. I'm shocked at all of the stuff that we don't know. The weather maps. I found it one day by accident in the Bronco. You can look at the live weather. Now, I had that years ago on an F-150. It was something I had to pay for. I guess when the 3 years is up or whatever, I'll have to pay for it myself. But it's one of the cool features that, you're not sold on it. It is nice to look at the weather as you're driving and not have to look at your phone. So as we go through this, and we'll see with the Ranger what that does with technology, all this cool stuff that we're learning. So I think it's going quick. The vehicles are starting to pump out and cool trims, fun stuff, technology, and like the trail maps. Not ready yet, but hey, one day, Tim, one day it'll be ready.
Come on, Ford.
There you go. Might start using that. All right, everyone. Well, look, a big thank you to Jody and let me get the name right. Bird Dog Off-Road Adventures. Did I get it?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to remember that. And Tim with Overlanding for Fun. You guys are great. I appreciate being here tonight. Thank you for spending a lot of time, 2.5 hours, whatever it is. I don't know. Anyway, we are out. And if you didn't, real quick before I end the stream, hit the like button for me on this video. I greatly appreciate it. If you're watching now live or on replay, hit the subscribe button for me, hit the bell icon, and hit all notifications. So whether we go live, post a video, do a short, or whatever, you get notified of that and you get to see it as soon as possible. And hey, for the comments tonight, thank you. Thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate it. And we are out, everyone. See ya. Bye.